Story 1. Stepsister dumped her kids on me during a job interview, so I called her ex. Now she's losing custody and dad's threatening to remove me from his will if I don't fix it. My stepsister, Lucy, 36F, has 10-year-old twin boys with her ex-husband, Gerald, 35M. My dad married Lucy's mother when we were in high school after they met through friends. Lucy's dad had passed away when she was little, and my parents had been separated ever since I was 3 years old. My dad had full custody and my mother only had visiting rights because she had early-onset dementia and passed away when I was in middle school. Lucy is 3 years older than me. When our parents introduced us to each other, she was 15 and I was just 12. She was kind of older than me and had this air around her as if I was beneath her, and she didn't reciprocate my attempts to make friends with her. Our parents were in a relationship for 3 years, but she never tried to get to know me or befriend me, probably because I wasn't cool enough for her. I don't know what it was, but for some reason she never seemed to like me much. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but with time I realized that she just didn't want me around, which was difficult to accept because I had been really excited about getting a big sister. There were times when I would try to talk to her, but she would just roll her eyes at me, and on more than one occasion, she slammed her door shut when she saw me outside a room. The funny part was that I would just be minding my own business and playing on my own. It just happened to be right outside a room. It felt like my existing around her was a problem, even if I wasn't trying to talk to her. I didn't understand the concept of teenager at that point, and I used to feel terrible because of how she used to treat me. But I kept trying to befriend her until I finally reached an age where I could understand that she just wasn't into it and we could never be friends. So, after our parents got married, I stopped trying to be her friend. By then, I was 15 and she had just turned 18. She was about to graduate and move out for college, so it didn't matter anyway if we were friends or not because we wouldn't be living in the same house for long. Once she moved out for college, she would only come back for the holidays or occasionally on the weekends, and after she got a job, even those visits reduced considerably. I also moved out when I started college and got my own apartment a few months after I graduated. Now that both of us were living on our own, we would only get together on the holidays or come back home to see our parents sometimes. We didn't keep in touch once we moved out and were practically strangers who met once or maybe twice a year. Lucy actually met Gerald because of me because I was the one who invited him home for our Christmas party one year. Gerald's sister, Joanna, was in college with me, and we remained close friends even after we graduated. One year, she told me that her parents were out of town for Christmas since one of their close family friends was sick and they were visiting him. She mentioned that she and her brother were bored at home because everyone else seemed to have plans with their family already. So I invited her and her brother home so they could celebrate Christmas with us. And that's how Lucy met Gerald. They spent the entire evening together, and a few weeks later, Joanne told me that they were going out together. I thought it was sweet and was very happy for them. When they announced that they were getting married after 2 years of being together, Joanna and I were both bridesmaids, which felt really strange. Lucy and I had never been close, and yet I was a bridesmaid at her wedding. But she was actually nice to me after she started dating Gerald and finally acknowledged my existence. It was probably because Joanna and I were close, and it wouldn't be a good look for her if I started telling her the way she used to treat me when I was younger, like she was too good for me and I was a blip in her otherwise perfect life. But she had no reason to worry because that was all in the past, and I didn't even care about that stuff anymore. So I wasn't going to bring it up with Joanna and try to sabotage her relationship because I stood nothing to gain from doing that. However, I didn't mind the fact that she was being nice to me just so I would keep my mouth shut about stuff from the past. And I can tell you guys for a fact that the only reason she started being nice to me was because she didn't want me to blab, because as soon as she hit a rough patch with Gerald, she stopped pretending to be my friend and cut ties with me. Throughout their relationship and their marriage, she would text me once a week, check up on me, and be all friendly with me. But that went out of the window as soon as Gerald filed for divorce. She would do the same for Joanna, so I knew that it was completely obligatory and she was doing this only because she would have to see us at every family get-together or birthdays and anniversaries. They stayed together for 3 years, so she was my friend for almost 5 years back then. But then the divorce proceedings started, and we went back to being strangers again. I didn't know why they were getting divorced because by then they already had a child, and it just happened really suddenly. I couldn't ask Lucy the reason why she was getting a divorce because she clearly didn't feel the need to pretend to be my friend anymore. So I asked Joanna because I was sure that Gerald would have told her. And so I found out that the two of them had been fighting about money because Lucy had been spending money like there was no tomorrow, which wasn't surprising because she always had been a spendthrift and had no sense of financial responsibility. Gerald had tried to talk to her and explain to her that now that they had kids, they couldn't keep spending money without thinking of the future, and they had to start saving. Lucy didn't take it well, and she told him that since she was an earning member of the family, she could do whatever she wanted to with her money, and it was not his place to tell her what she could and couldn't do. However, Lucy earned a lot less than her husband, but she spent a lot more than what she earned. So mathematically, she wasn't exactly spending just her own money since she would often make withdrawals from their joint account to make insanely ridiculous and unnecessary purchases. She had purchased a new car for her personal use without even talking to him just a few weeks before they had that discussion. And that's actually what had pushed him into talking to her because she had absolutely no need for a new car when her old one was working just fine. When Gerald brought up that she had used his hard-earned money to buy that car, she flipped out at him and started cursing him out. She called him a miser and said that he didn't care for anybody but himself, which was way out of line because the only reason he was even asking her to think about her finances was because he cared for her and their kids and wanted a better future for their family. She really crossed the line when she dug up a stack of cash from her purse, flung it at his face in a fit of anger, and told him that she would pay him back for the car, but until then he could keep this and stop begging for money from her. That effectively put an end to their marriage, and they got divorced soon after. She got to keep the car, just by the way. It's been 7 years since then, and I haven't been in touch with Lucy, mostly because she cut ties with me and as well as with Joanna and Gerald. We do meet each other on the holidays, but she ignores me now, unlike earlier when she would at least greet me. But I don't care because I don't like her much either, especially not after what Joanna had told me about the reason behind her divorce, because I realized she was just an arrogant and stuck-up brat and had always been that way. So now suffice it to say that she and I are not friends in any way whatsoever. They have shared custody of the boys, and they spent half the year with Lucy and the other half with Gerald. The only time I even meet her kids is when Joanna and I are asked to babysit by Gerald. The three of us have kept in touch and are pretty great friends, actually, so it's not uncommon for me to look after the twins whenever Gerald's too busy or Joanna's unavailable. And it's not like Lucy isn't aware of this. She knows and she still acts cold towards me. We haven't spoken to each other in ages, and I didn't think I was ever going to talk to her anyway. But a few weeks ago, she approached me herself because she wanted me to watch the boys for a while because she had work. It was her turn to have the kids, and when she showed up at my house, she told me that the sitter hadn't shown up and she couldn't get through to Gerald. She wasn't willing to contact Joanna because she didn't trust that girl. And she couldn't ask our parents to watch the kids because they were out of town. And none of her friends were interested in looking after the boys. It was a Saturday, so they didn't have school either. But Lucy had an important appointment with a client, and she was already running late for the meeting. So I was the only person that she could turn to. Under normal circumstances, I would have taken them in, no questions asked. But I had a really important job interview lined up, and I couldn't have two kids running around the house during the interview. I love the twins, but they can be quite a handful, and they're really loud and unruly sometimes. I tried to tell Lucy that I couldn't watch them because I had work to attend to, but she told me that it didn't matter much because I work from home, so I could manage this, but she had to go attend the meeting in person. She couldn't postpone this because it was an important client and they'd get busy after this. So I told her that I was literally in the same situation. However, she insisted that she had to go meet her client in person, and it was different for her. I tried to tell her that even if I did work from home, I still needed a certain peace and quiet, and I wouldn't be able to watch the kids and do my work. And besides, I had a job interview today, and it was a really important one because it would mean better pay and a better position. I couldn't mess this up because opportunities like these are hard to come by. But Lucy didn't seem to care. She pushed the kids inside my house and told me that I was watching them until she was done with her meeting and she would pick them up in the evening. But until then, I had to look after them whether I wanted to or not because that's what it meant to be a family, and I couldn't shirk my duties. So I had to suck it up and deal with it. Of course, I didn't like that because as I mentioned above, we are definitely not a family, and she has never treated me as such. And we can't become family just for one day according to her convenience. She left in a hurry before I could even tell her to stop and take her kids with her. She had started driving away as soon as the kids were inside. For the first couple of seconds, I didn't know what to do because I had to hop on to the meeting in an hour, and I needed the kids to be picked up before that. My first instinct was to call their father, but just like Lucy had told me, the calls wouldn't go through. So I decided to call Joanna, and luckily she answered. So I explained the situation to her, and she was at my place in no time. She took the kids away with her, even though she had a day off, but I was so happy that she was sacrificing it just to help me out. My interview went great and I ended up getting the job. But things didn't end well for Lucy. After the interview, I received a call from Gerald. Joanna had already told him everything, and when he called me, he told me that he had been unavailable in the morning because there had been some issue with the electric circuit in his house, and every single electronic appliance in his house was busted when he woke up, including his phone since it had been charging overnight. It had been a crazy morning for him, and he hadn't been able to receive any calls because his phone was dead. He'd left his laptop at work the previous day as well. He told me that he had to run around town in person to find an electrician and get everything fixed. He also had to get a new phone because he couldn't get his old one to work, and that's how he could finally talk to us. The universe had aligned just perfectly to screw everything up for literally every single person involved, and it had been an insane morning for all of us. But Lucy was the only one who had acted selfishly and just abandoned her kids with me. I told Gerald that I had told her several times that I couldn't look after them because I had a job interview, but she still pushed them inside and told me that I had to look after them because I was apparently family now and it was my duty. I hadn't told Joanna about the argument in the morning that day because I was in such a hurry, but in the evening, I explained everything to both of them and told them all about the argument and how she had forced me to take the kids in and driven away before I could oppose it. Gerald seemed very annoyed while I was telling them about it, and later on, I found out it was because apparently this was not even the first time that Lucy had pulled off something like this. This had been happening quite frequently in the past couple of months where Lucy would just drop the kids off at her relatives' places or worse, their common friends' homes, on the pretext of having important work to attend to, and then drive away before they could protest. Some of them would deal with it and look after the kids, but most of them would end up calling Gerald and asking him to pick up the kids because they were not ready to watch them on such short notice. He had told Lucy several times that this was negligent and really irresponsible of her. It was also very embarrassing for him because more often than not, he would have to be the one to apologize to whoever she had inconvenienced. But she said that since it was her turn to have the kids, she could decide whatever she wanted to, and he needed to stay out of it. She would refuse to call Gerald, Joanna, or me for help because of course she was too proud to do it. But she had to turn to me that day because apparently everybody else had refused to even open the door to her since they didn't want to give up their Saturday watching her kids. We found out about that recently after Gerald asked around to strengthen his case to get full custody. They had been fighting over Lucy's behavior ever since she received that promotion, and her workload increased because now she was neglecting her kids. And after the incident with me, he decided that he had had enough, and it was time that he applied for full custody. There were also a couple of other things that had been bothering him because Lucy had been spoiling the kids rotten while they were living with her, and it was always a task for him to get them to behave when they started living with him. For years, he would try to teach them to behave themselves, but Lucy believed in letting boys be boys, and so she would let them run wild around the house without bothering to discipline them or teach them right from wrong. So by the time they came back to Gerald, all the hard work that he had put in during his half of the year would be undone. He said he couldn't take any more of this, and soon after that day he filed for full custody, which turned out to be the worst for me because my dad is now losing his mind since Lucy might end up losing custody of her children. He called me the day that Lucy was served and told me to fix this in whatever way that I could by speaking to Gerald or Joanna and making sure they know that Lucy is really a great mother. I told him I wasn't going to do any of that, and Lucy is not even close to a good mother, so it will be doing the kids a huge favor if I don't interfere in the custody battle. But he insisted that I do what he said or else he would cut me out of his will and never speak to me again. He says that Lucy hasn't stopped crying ever since she was served, and he believes that this is all my fault because I should have just watched the kids for a while that day instead of throwing a fit about it and getting the others involved. I don't understand how this is my fault because Lucy has never been my friend. She can't just show up one day and expect me to treat her like family and do whatever she asks me to. And honestly, even if Gerald had been the one to approach me that day, which he never would have without prior notice, I still would have said no, and he would not have forced me either. That's what a good parent does. They take responsibility for their kids instead of forcing other people to take them in. I tried to argue with my father and talk some sense into him, but he wouldn't listen to me and gave me an ultimatum. He told me that I could either talk to Gerald and get this fixed or I would lose him. AITA for telling my stepsister's ex-husband that she dumped her kids on me on the day of my job interview? Update 1. Hey, so a lot of you have been asking about my relationship with my father. Well, it's okay. I was actually a lot closer to my mom when she was alive. But anyway, coming to my dad, he and I have had a normal relationship growing up. Right now, we are not that close and haven't been ever since I moved out. He has been a busy man throughout my life, and I haven't ever really had the chance to really build a relationship with him. It's not bad, but it's not great either. It's somewhere in the middle. I believe that he and Lucy are pretty tight right now, which is why he is on her side, even though it's the wrong side of history. My stepmom and I have also never been close, but she hasn't ever been as horrible to me as other stepmoms could be. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I have just always had a normal relationship with all of them. It's never been bad, but it's never been great either, just neutral. I also just want to make it clear that I couldn't have changed the time of my meeting because that would have seemed unprofessional. I was already asking them to conduct the interview on a Saturday since I was working every other day. Also, I shouldn't have to change my routine to accommodate someone else's kids. The very belief that I should is pretty absurd. There's also been a lot of hue and cry about us working Saturdays, but I don't see what the big deal is. It's just a couple of times and a one-off thing. Nobody works every weekend. It's nothing uncommon really, especially given the current work culture in our line of work. I'm a social media marketing specialist, and my sister works in advertising. As far as I know, working Saturdays isn't unheard of. So I hope that clears things up since many of you were confused as to why I had an interview on a weekend. Also, just to be clear, Gerald and I became friends after he started dating Lucy. So there. I hope that clears everything. Update 2. It's been a week since I posted here, and the custody battle has already started, so it's too late for me to do anything. But my father has still been trying to get me to talk to Gerald and do something about this. He thinks that I'm the only one who can do something because he is my friend and he might listen to me. He has also been playing the family card relentlessly, just like Lucy had tried to, and says that I should think about her first. I have tried to explain to him that it's too late for me to do anything, and I also don't want to say anything about this because it's not my place. This is between the kids' parents, and since I'm not even a blood relative to them, I think it would be really inappropriate for me to try and get him to stop. In addition to that, I also don't want to do this because I don't think Gerald is in the wrong. I think he is doing the right thing by trying to get full custody of his children. It's the best thing for all of them in the long run. Lucy is arrogant, rude, and entitled, and I don't think she is a good influence on the kids. She is going to raise them to be exactly like herself, and why would anybody want that to happen, least of all their father? I haven't said that to my dad, but if he bothers me again, then I just might snap and say that because that's exactly what I think. Funnily enough, while my dad has been fighting for Lucy and talking her up to get me to change my mind, she hasn't had a word for me. I don't think she has much to say anyway because she knows that this is just her own fault. Update 3. So I received a call from my dad's lawyer today, and he told me that my dad was cutting me out of the will since I hadn't done what he had asked me to. It's been 3 weeks since my last update, and I have been busy with my new job. There is a lot that I have to catch up on, and I have a lot on my plate right now, so I can't afford to waste my time dealing with my dad and his antics. So I told his attorney that I was fine with it, and then I hung up before he could say anything else. My dad found that very insulting, so he took it upon himself to visit me and tell me that he was very disappointed in how I was behaving. He came by in the evening just as I got off work, and even when I told him that I wasn't interested in talking to him right now because I had a really long day, he refused to leave and told me that we needed to have this conversation. But I stood my ground and I refused to let him in. So he stood on the porch and began to lecture me about the importance of family. He told me that I had ruined Lucy's life by complaining about her to Gerald, knowing that he would jump at the opportunity to take her kids away from her because he was apparently a selfish man who cared about nothing but himself and only wanted to make her suffer because he still held a grudge against her for whatever had happened in the past. Now, I could have told my father that this couldn't be further from the truth, but there was no point because he was only going to believe what Lucy had told him. So instead, I satisfied myself by telling him that he could continue to tell himself that she was the one who was right and everybody else was wrong. He was free to do whatever he pleased as long as he kept me out of it. So if he wanted to, then he could talk to Gerald and try to defend Lucy, but I wasn't going to do his dirty work for him. Then I tried to shut the door, but he started yelling at me and said that I had no loyalty towards my family, and I ignored it. When he realized that I wasn't going to let him get to me, he decided to strike a really low blow and said that it was probably for the best that I didn't have any kids of my own because I would make a terrible mother. And then he turned around to go back home because he knew that he had hit me where it hurt. Don't get me wrong, I love my life as it is, but I have found myself wishing that I had a family of my own as well. I have had boyfriends in the past, but it's never lasted long enough for me to get serious, and I have been really hurt in relationships. Because my longest relationship ended with a guy cheating on me, so I couldn't bring myself to trust people again for a really long time. He and I had been together for several years, almost 5, and had even been planning to get married, but unfortunately it ended when I found out that he had been having an affair with his secretary. That relationship had come to an end just a couple of years ago, and everybody in the family had known about it because I had been depressed in the aftermath of the breakup, and it had taken me a really long time to get back on my feet again. I'm doing better now and I've moved on, but it still hurts when people bring it up, and for my own father to use it against me was low. I couldn't believe that he was actually making a mockery out of something so awful, but I got over it pretty soon once I realized that this guy wasn't my dad anymore. This was Lucy's family coming after me because I had hurt her. My dad was long gone, and now I had no parents. So I had no need to feel bad about what a stranger said to me. Thinking about it like that made it really easy for me to deal with it. Still kind of hurts, but it's done now, and the only thing I can do is cut them all out of my life for good. Update 4. So this is going to be a short update for those of you who are asking about what happened with the custody case. I'm sure that this will not come as a surprise to anyone, but Gerald got full custody of the kids. We all saw it coming, and we were really happy for him as well as the kids because this is what is best for them. Lucy wasn't happy about it and decided that she was going to get back at us by running her mouth all over town and telling everybody that we had ruined her life and stolen her kids from her. It's ironic that she has been talking so much about how much she misses her kids, but it's been almost a month since she lost custody of them, and yet she hasn't even been to visit them once. She still has visiting rights, so there is no excuse for this, and it just goes to show how little she cares about them and that she has only been talking about the kids for sympathy. A mother who uses her kids to gain sympathy doesn't deserve them anyway, in my opinion at least. Joanna and I still get to see them. They miss their mom, but they'll be fine. My work is also going pretty well. I haven't spoken to anyone whom I dislike, so I really don't have any regrets right now. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Wife let her junkie ex move in and lied to me that he was her brother. Later on, I found the truth and told everything to her family. I, 32M, have been married to my wife for over a year. I know it's just a year of marriage, yet I'm here telling my story. So, I met my wife around 3 years ago. For the privacy's sake, I'll call her Renee, 28F. When I first met her, she was new in the city, struggling to make a career. She wanted to become a fashion designer in Hollywood, but her parents didn't approve of her profession because of the not-so-decent reputation of Hollywood. Besides, they wanted her to join their family business instead of hopping into a job. To prove her point, Renee moved to California and joined a company as a fashion intern. I'm into the advertising industry, and my work profile includes onboarding fashion designing companies to design clothes for the ads. That's how I met Renee. Although she was new in her company, her manager used to tag her along during briefing sessions because she was really sharp. After a few months, Renee single-handedly dealt with our company, and that's when we started seeing each other. It started off as professional meetings and eventually turned into romantic dates. I was impressed by Renee's charisma and resilience. She fought with her parents, almost got abandoned by them, and left her hometown because she chose her passion. We had to keep our relationship hidden because her company had a no-relationship policy with the clients. After 6 months of her internship, she switched to a better-paying full-time role in a different company. After her job switch, We decided to keep our personal and professional relationships separate because it might cost us our jobs. But we moved in together and officially started dating. Renee had no friends in the city except for her colleagues from the past and current company, so she mostly used to tag along with my friends. She was friendly, smart, and had a great sense of humor. She became a part of our friends group in no time. It was so fun to be around Renee that I never had a second thought about her. After 2 years of dating, I proposed to Renee. She gladly said yes, but was also worried about not having her parents on board. The thing is, her family is conservative Christian, while I'm not at all. Hence, she was worried that her parents would be upset about it. They were already not happy with her career choice. I took her to meet my parents first to make her feel comfortable. My parents adored her. I assured her I would try my best to convince her parents, but she said she would handle it. Although my parents insisted that we have a joint dinner for both families, Renee said it was best that her parents directly come for the wedding. I left the decision to her because she knew her family the best. My mother found this weird, but I assured her everything would be fine. During the wedding preps, I asked Renee if she wanted to have the wedding in the traditional way as it happens in her family, but she said that we could have it the way we wanted. As Renee said, her parents arrived on the day of the wedding. I was prepared for the tough conversations with them, but surprisingly, her parents were sweet. According to Renee's account, I imagined them to be a conservative, sulky, and rude parent, but they were nothing like that. On the contrary, they were very polite and gentle with everyone. My mother was relieved to find them so warm. I lauded Renee for doing a great job at convincing her parents about the wedding, but she didn't acknowledge it much and said we could discuss this later. After the wedding, I asked if she wanted to visit her parents because she had never returned to her hometown after leaving it for her career. She said that she was running hectic at work and would visit them when the workload subsided. 5 months ago, I had to visit Tokyo for work purposes. It was a 4-day trip, but I got it extended for a week to explore the city. It was all fine, and Renee knew about it ever since it was planned. However, on the day I was supposed to leave, she said she would be bored alone for a week. Hence, she would fly down to meet her parents. I felt weird at her sudden plan. Besides, I wanted to accompany her to her hometown, but since I was leaving for a week, I could not tell her anything. During those 5 days, we remained almost distant. I was busy at work and exploring the new city, and I thought she was busy with her family as she had met them after so many years. When we both returned, I told her I wanted to visit her family because I had not met any of them except her parents, whom I met for just a few hours. She said that we can plan it next time. A few weeks after her return, she said she wanted to share something with me. It was about her brother. I was surprised because she had never talked about her brother earlier. During our dating phase, when I asked about her family, she told me that she had a brother, but she also said they were not on good terms. When I didn't find her brother at the wedding, I asked her, but she said they were not that close and he might be busy taking care of the business in her father's absence. Renee revealed that her brother was gay, and when her conservative family got to know about this, they took him to therapy to make him straight. I raised my eyebrow at this revelation. She said that she lived in a small town where people still consider homosexuality to be a mental illness, and besides, her parents were conservative. However, after several years of therapy, when her brother continued with his orientation, her parents disowned him. That was why they wanted Renee to take over the family business. Her brother didn't take his family's abandonment easy and found solace in drugs. He went so far into the addiction that he had to be in rehab. That was the reason her brother was missing from our wedding. I was disappointed that she didn't tell me about all this before. She sobbed and said that she feared I would judge her for her family background. Renee said that when she visited her hometown this time, she got to know that her brother was out of rehab. Since his family didn't want him, he was living alone. Renee feared he might relapse out of the frustration and loneliness of living alone, so she asked him to move to CA. She asked me if he could stay with us for some time until he got a job and a place for himself. I agreed to it because our apartment had a spare room used only to pile up courier boxes and discarded items. A couple of weeks after this discussion, Renee's brother Marco arrived. He is a year younger than Renee, hence she is protective of her baby brother. He was a timid guy, I thought his self-confidence had shrunk due to his disturbing past. He didn't talk to me much and was put in his room or went outside whenever I was home. It's been more than 2 months since he is here. Renee has been pulling all her contacts to get him a job. I do see him going for interviews on some days, but he had no luck yet. I don't want to sound evil, but his presence is kind of bothering me now, and Renee's behavior has also changed after he had moved in. She acts more like his elder sister than my wife. Her world seems to rotate just around Marco. Initially, I thought that she was just taking care of him, but eventually, I'm not feeling that good about it. Also, Marco's behavior looks pretty shady to me. It is either that he is still into drugs or maybe he is hiding something even more grave. Last week, I asked Renee if we could plan a trip to her hometown. She said she was busy this month. She also said that I should not tell her parents that Marco was living with us. I asked why not. She said that her parents had disowned him and they wouldn't like that I was siding with him. I was confused by her logic. She said her parents have finally accepted her career and are happy with her. Hence, she didn't want to destroy the relationship by talking about Marco. The reason why I'm here is primarily because of this. Doesn't this entire situation sound shady? If this was not all, I find them very secretive of late. I realized they changed the topic whenever I entered the living room or the kitchen. I even heard them talking in whispers, and when I entered, they started talking normally. I confronted Renee about this, but she told me they were discussing Marco's relapse and therapy, which he is embarrassed to talk about in front of me. I spoke to my colleague last day, and he said I was just jealous because Renee's attention got divided. Hence, I'm apprehensive about sharing this with others or confronting it with Renee. I want to know a neutral perspective from this community. Let me know if I missed any crucial information. I'll be online for the rest of the evening. I'm looking forward to catching up on the comments section. Update 1. Hi all. Thanks for the advice on the last post. Some of you sent me the stories of other men whose wives cheated on them by posing their lovers as their brothers, and that hit me hard. It was something beyond imaginable. So instead of jumping to the conclusion, I started digging into it. I started off by checking his ID. I wished I had done that earlier. A few days after my first post, I suddenly walked into the living room where Renee and Marco were sitting. I asked Marco if he had any luck with the interviews yet. They both were taken by surprise because I never used to ask these personal questions to them. He stammered for a while and said he was in talks with several recruiters but nothing has panned up yet. I told them my friend needs a supervisor for his office and is looking for someone reliable, so I wanted to refer Marco for that role. Someone who was looking for a job would have jumped in excitement with this news, but their expression was more of a shock than excitement. Without giving them any opportunity to think further, I asked for his resume. Renee jumped in and said she would share it in some time, but I insisted that I needed it right away. Renee's pushback confirmed my doubts about them. After a few exchanges between Renee and me, Marco shared the soft copy of his resume with me. I immediately opened it in front of them and checked for his name. My doubts turned out to be true. Although his name was still Marco, his surname was different from Renee's maiden name. I subtly asked them about this. Before Marco could say anything, Renee said since their parents had disowned him, he had changed his surname. I was ready for this BS anyway. Until then, I thought this sister-brother duo was up to something, but after this revelation, it was doubtful whether they were really siblings or not. So after a week, I told Renee that I was traveling to a place near her hometown for work, and if she was free, she could join me and we could visit her parents' house. I deliberately gave her short notice so it was easier for her to say no. As expected, she said she was busy, but she kept asking me if I would be visiting her parents. I said no, I won't visit them alone, we can plan for next time. In reality, I had no work trip. I went to her hometown only to meet her parents and uncover her truth. I don't want to get into the details of how I sourced their address. It was on her ID. So I went to their house and immediately told them not to reveal this to Renee because I was planning a surprise for her. Renee's birthday was around the corner, a day after tomorrow. So I told them that I was arranging a surprise party for Renee and went there to invite them in person. They were pleased to receive me. While speaking to them, I eventually opened up and told them that they don't seem conservative at all like Renee had described. They laughed at it, taking it to be a joke. Then I started probing them about their faith, and to my surprise, it came out that they were not at all conservative. I then started asking about their business. I kept it subtle so as not to raise any suspicions. Her father said that he intended to retire from his company next year and take it easy on life. I grabbed the opportunity and asked him how his business would run after retirement. He said his son is already handling his business quite well, so he is best suited to be his heir. I saw Renee's mother getting uncomfortable with this, so I tried to divert to another topic, but her father went on to say, "I wanted to be fair between both my children. That's why I urged Renee to join the business. In that way, both the brother and sister would have an equal share of the business. As Ryan is my son from the first marriage, Renee and my wife both are insecure that he would not give the business share to her. Since you're a family now, I'm telling you that I'll be fair with both my children." He said something further that he was unhappy about Renee's career choice, but by then I had zoned out after hearing his son's name be Ryan. I was choking from inside and wanted to breathe, so I cut him off in the middle and said that once they came for Renee's birthday, we could sit and sort out the difference. I didn't get to meet Ryan, but I saw him in the family pictures in their hallway. While leaving, I again reminded them not to tell Renee that I had visited them. It was supposed to be a surprise. They happily nodded. I felt so disgusted knowing that Renee was indeed having a lover in my house, posing him to be her brother. I went to meet them on Saturday, so it was almost a week before Renee's birthday, which was on Thursday. I felt so uneasy to share the house with her that I never returned home after meeting her parents. She called me on Sunday asking me when I would return. I told her my work got extended and I would be back only on Thursday morning. I'm currently put up in a hotel until then. I know she and her lover are having a honeymoon period in my absence, but I don't care. I just want to expose and humiliate her in front of her parents. I'm already in talks with a lawyer to process the divorce. In fact, I had an appointment with him a few hours before I made this update. I'll make another update once I expose that slut. Update 2. So, I'm finally divorced. I know I took a while to make an update, but I wanted to wrap up everything and update it at once. For people who commented that I ignored all the red flags when it was clearly displayed all over my face, the thing is, I didn't notice or take any of it as absurd when it was happening. It sounded weird only when I retrospect to the incidents after Marco's arrival. If you look at any solo event, it doesn't look shady. Only when everything gets added up does it sound obvious. And now everyone is taunting me that I was a simp to ignore it. Cool. Moving on. As I mentioned, I invited Renee's parents for her birthday on Thursday. I went home on the same day. She was home. I felt so awful seeing her face that I didn't even wish her on the birthday. She thought I had forgotten. In order to sound cute, she hugged me and asked me to wish her. I played along and wished her. She said that I should take her out to celebrate her birthday. I said that I was tired and wanted to take a shower first. By the time I came out of the shower, Renee was already dressed up and ready to go out. I pretended to ignore her and went to bed. She played out her cute self, yelling at me to dress up and take her out. I said that I was having a terrible headache and needed a nap. I asked her to wait for a couple of hours. She got upset, but I assured her the wait would be worth it. I wasn't sleepy at all. I was in fact heavy-hearted, anticipating the confrontation which was just about to happen. An hour later, I got a call from Renee's father that they were just about to arrive. I hurriedly got out of the bed and went outside. On my way out, I saw Renee and Marco talking and cooking inside the kitchen. She even asked me where I was going out in a hurry. I said that there was a courier outside and I was going to collect it. I went outside and waited for a few minutes before I saw them. I greeted them and took them inside. That was a moment. It was not only a moment of shock and despair for Renee and her lover, but her parents were equally shocked. It meant that they already knew about Marco. Renee looked at me asking for an explanation. I said, "Oh, Ryan didn't come? It would have made things easier, isn't it?" Her father gave a disgusted look at Renee and asked her what Marco was doing at our house. She started sobbing by then. I sarcastically said, "Why are you saying this? Isn't he supposed to be your son?" Renee begged me to stop. Marco wanted to leave, but I stopped him by his shoulder and told him to sit. Her mother insisted on knowing the truth, so I told her everything. Marco and Renee were frozen to death. Her parents gave a despised look at them. Her father turned towards me and asked if I knew everything. I said no, I got to know the truth when I visited them. He went on to reveal everything which was left uncovered. He said that Marco was Renee's boyfriend from college, and he had always been a drug addict and a bum sucking on Renee's pocket money. Hence, they had to cut off giving any money to Renee. They wanted her to join the business so that they could track her expenses, but Renee chose to fund her boyfriend, so she left the house and took up a job. When Marco's addiction reached its peak, his parents admitted him to rehab. Renee could not bear the loneliness and moved to California, and that's when we met and got married. Her parents said they were really happy when they got to know that she was marrying me. They thought she had moved on from Marco, but there she was, sitting with him in my house. I looked at Renee and asked if all these restarted when she visited her parents during my Tokyo trip. She looked at me with a straight face and said yes. She admitted that she kept me away from her family because she feared her past getting uncovered. She admitted that she had moved on from Marco while she was with me. But when she got to know that Marco was back from rehab, she could not control herself and went to meet him. During the meeting, Marco convinced her that he was a changed man and urged her to divorce me. Renee could not take that risk right away unless Marco got a job, so they both planned the entire thing. It was true that Renee was not on good terms with his stepbrother Ryan, and hence she used that opportunity to pose Marco as her brother in front of me. Marco interrupted that he never liked the plan of staying in my house, but Renee forced him to. Her father was so disheartened that she lied so much about them and portrayed them as vain just to have her boyfriend. The situation got so worse that her father choked Marco by his collar and dragged him out of the house while Renee pleaded with him to stop. I just kept staring at her, at how smartly she was playing her game. Her parents apologized to me for everything. I told them they need not be sorry for what Renee had done. I also informed them that I was going to file for divorce and Renee needed to leave the house right away. Renee didn't resist. She silently went inside the room to pack her belongings, but her father was not in the mood to take her with him. He stood up saying that she had created this mess and now she has to bear it. While leaving, he told Renee that her drugged BF had cost her everything good she had in life. They left the house without Renee. Soon after they left, Renee also left. She didn't look at me or say anything. She just lowered her gaze and walked away. I don't know if I should feel good for taking my revenge by humiliating her or if I should feel bad for her misery. A month ago, my lawyer called her to check the address at which the divorce needed to be shipped. She said that she would visit his office and collect it. My lawyer informed me that she arrived at his office an hour later. As soon as he handed over the papers to her, she just glanced at the terms and immediately signed in front of him, handed back the papers to him, and left. A week ago, we were presented before the magistrate for the divorce finalization. She was alone. She looked miserable and was quiet during the entire trial. In the end, when she was questioned, she affirmed agreeing to my terms. Actually, I didn't have a lot of property and wealth that she would have fought over. The house in which we were living was also rented. Since she was working, I was not asked for an alimony. In fact, I was being considerate in not charging her with alimony for cheating and fraud. Our divorce was finalized uncontested. I know I'll get a lot of heat for letting her slip so easily. The thing is, she had already lost everything. Her marriage, her family, her dignity. There was nothing left with her to be destroyed. Yesterday, her mother called me asking about the divorce status. I told her that it was over. She cried, saying she heard that Marco had again started taking drugs, and she feared he would destroy her daughter and take her down the path of drugs and crime along with him. She also said her father had disowned her from the will, fearing that she would shower all his hard-earned money on that drug addict, Marco. I empathized with her and hung up, asking her to take care. I wonder how someone can be so stupid as to love someone to the extent of losing everything. If a woman like Renee, who was so intelligent and sharp, could be so stupid to fall for Marco, there is nothing much left to talk about others. Now on to the next story. Story 3. Mother keeps choosing horrible men over us, sells her house to a scammer boyfriend, now broke and begging for our help after we warned her. I'm not sure where to begin with this, but my mom has destroyed her own life, and it's all her own fault. To start from the beginning, my mother has always held the belief that a person should prioritize their partner over their children. In the past, this belief has been more of an annoyance than anything truly damaging. It mostly meant that she consistently took his side in arguments, even when she later acknowledged that he was objectively wrong. I ended up spending a lot of time with babysitters so they could have alone time. One instance that really upset me and cemented my belief that my mother loves my stepdad more than me was when she got drunk with her friends and was asked a hypothetical question. If my stepdad and I were both drowning and she could only save one of us, who would it be? She didn't hesitate at all before choosing my stepdad. As time went on, it became increasingly evident that my stepdad's behavior was not just a matter of annoyance but a genuine cause for concern. He was emotionally and sometimes even physically abusive, and yet my mother remained steadfastly loyal to him. I suspect now that he struggled with bipolar disorder because he would have random, violent mood swings, which often manifested in emotional abuse and occasional violence. The cycle was painfully predictable. It usually started with something minor, like a simple misunderstanding or a moment of hesitation on my part. Then he would go unusually quiet, which would make us tense and tiptoe around the house, afraid to provoke his wrath. I would stay in my room for hours, afraid to go out because of this. Then, like clockwork, he would go out and drink and return home in a drunken rage, unleashing a torrent of hurtful words and destructive outbursts on us. Our house belongings would then bear the brunt of his anger. Our oven door, expensive blinds, dining room chairs, and even my computer fell victim to his fury. Then he would start screaming at us, saying how he was going to leave and never come back. In those agonizing moments of his absence, I would hold my mother close as she grappled with despair, trying to keep the house together. Days would pass by in a haze of uncertainty until, out of nowhere, he would reappear on our doorstep as if nothing had ever happened. There would be no apologies, no explanations. It was like he would expect us to welcome him back with open arms. My mom would force me to forgive him and give him a hug so we could resume our facade of a happy family until his next mood swings. During those fleeting moments of peace, he would shower me with affection, claiming me as his own daughter and showering me with praise. But beneath the facade of affection, I knew that his craziness would inevitably return, plunging us back into the cycle of fear and uncertainty. I would plead with my mother to leave him, and she would say how he is going to change and to be patient. This was extremely frustrating, yet as a child, I had no choice but to follow my mother's lead. Despite the turmoil at home, my mother decided to get married to my stepdad, and they eventually got married. She gave birth to my stepsister, Serena. The arrival of Serena did nothing to change our family dynamic, and my stepdad continued to behave like a maniac as usual. Perhaps it was because my mother spent so much of her time taking care of my stepdad that Serena and I started to lean on each other for support. I was 4 years older than Serena, so I took it upon myself to look after her as much as I could. We walked to and from school together, sharing stories and secrets along the way. In those moments, despite the chaos at home, Serena and I found solace in each other's company, which is why we continue to be close even today. As we started growing up, my stepdad started to focus his abuse more and more on my mom and me. He knew my mother would not lift a single finger against him, so he would often take advantage of that by kicking me, throwing my food if I didn't listen to him, taking away my phone and checking all my apps, and making me go hungry to bed if I protested. He would often taunt me that, as the man in this family, he needed to make sure that I was being a good daughter, otherwise no man would want me. He would also say things like I was the reason that he and my mom fought so much. One of his biggest manipulative methods was forcing my mother in such a way that she had to choose sides. For example, if he didn't like what I was wearing, he would ask me to cover up more or change, even though I would be wearing a normal shirt that showcased no skin. He would loudly ask Mom if she approved of her daughter going out like this, and then Mom would obviously take his side and make me change into a turtleneck. When I would get pissed at her, she would tell me that a good wife puts her husband before her children. At 16, I wasn't allowed to watch any movies, listen to music, read comic books, play games on my computer, or go out with anyone whose parents they hadn't met. I would plead and plead, but my stepdad would scoff and say how women during his time stayed in their house all the time, which is why they were good housewives. He would also say that I should be a good role model to Serena so that she could grow up like me. He himself would spend hours on the couch drinking and watching shitty action films. Once, I even walked him to watch porn. That shameless guy didn't even bother to switch it off or lower the volume. Serena didn't understand what he was watching and was shocked to see what was going on the screen. I was so embarrassed that I rushed her inside my room and put headphones on her ears. Later, when I told my mother about it, she said how men sometimes need to watch porn and that I should not judge him. I told her to at least tell him to watch it somewhere outside, and when my mother decided to talk to him about it, he tried to manipulate my mother and say how I decided to come back home early and it wasn't his fault. In the end, everyone dropped it and pretended like nothing had happened. Finally, when I was 18, I got into a good university, and without hesitation, I moved out. Serena and my mom begged me not to move so far away, which absolutely broke my heart, but I knew that if I didn't go, then I would never have this chance again. Stepdad threatened that he would never allow me to come back home if I really decided to move, but I didn't care about his opinions anymore. I promised Serena that she could move in with me when she was 18. This is when my actual life began. Leaving home for university was both liberating and terrifying. It was my chance to break free from the toxic environment I had grown up in and start fresh. Living on my own taught me independence and resilience. I threw myself into my studies, surrounded myself with supportive friends, and explored new opportunities. Meanwhile, I kept my promise to Serena close to my heart and worked hard to get good grades so I could secure a good job and have her come live with me. I eagerly waited for the day she could join me and experience the freedom I had found. As the years passed, I watched her grow into a remarkable young woman, and when she turned 18, she moved in with me, marking the beginning of a new chapter in both our lives. Unlike me, she didn't have good grades, so ultimately I got her enrolled into a community college in my locality. She approached her studies with dedication and enthusiasm, determined to carve out her own path. Our lives together were great. We shared everything, from stories to chores, and it was great to see her grow. She worked hard at college, and we supported each other through the ups and downs. Having her around made life more exciting, and we tackled challenges together, knowing we could rely on each other. As she studied and I worked, we built a strong bond that made everything feel possible. Throughout all this, my communication with my mother had reduced significantly. She would only talk to me when Stepdad was out of home, so he would not catch her talking to me. He clearly nursed a grudge against me, and it only solidified even more when Serena moved out to be with me. He would call Serena several times and demand her to come back home, but she would say how much happier she was living with me. He would then threaten, saying that he would show up at our doorsteps, give me a beating of a lifetime, and then drag her out. As a result, this would scare both of us, so we lived in fear for a very long time, not knowing when he would actually show up. When I got a stable job, I moved me and Serena into a gated community, after which we could relax more, knowing that there was 24/7 security. A few years later, we found out from Mom that my stepdad was diagnosed with liver cancer due to excessive drinking. It was his last stage, and there was no treatment in the world that could save him. I hate to write this, but I genuinely felt relieved about it. He sent me a long message saying how sorry he was for all the abuse he put me through and how he needed me and Serena to come back so we could take care of him. He had sent a similar message to Serena, saying how she was his own flesh and blood and they should spend his last days together. Both of us immediately refused and blocked him. We honestly didn't care if he lived or died. My mom was extremely upset with us for not forgiving him. She said she knew he was sorry and didn't understand why our hearts were so hard. She said he was dying, and as his daughters, we needed to forgive him so he could go away in peace. I told her that he is going to hell, no matter how much forgiveness he asks for, which pissed my mom even more. She even tried to guilt us into visiting them by saying how he was crying in bed the whole day for us, but we didn't pay any heed. Eventually, my stepdad passed away in his sleep. I wish he could have suffered more, but unfortunately he didn't. Serena and I then decided to go back home to be there for our mother and support her through the funeral. I arranged everything regarding the funeral while my mother was crying to all her relatives about how great of a husband he was and how she was going to miss him. Once his funeral was done, We discussed with my mother to come and live with us since we knew she couldn't sustain all by herself. But to our shock, she refused. My mom then went on to say how stepdad had left behind all his assets, like the deeds to this house and some bonds, to her, and she had plenty to go on with. She showed me the paperwork, and I was surprised to see that he had saved up so much money. He also had life insurance, which she was going to claim. I was happy for my mom since she had suffered enough under him, and at least these assets were some form of repayment. Stepdad had left all his money in his savings account to Serena, which wasn't much, but at least he left her something. Now that we knew Mom would be okay, Serena and I flew back to our place so we could resume our daily lives. We would constantly talk to Mom every day to make sure that she was okay. Whenever we had holidays like Christmas, we would visit her. To stay busy, Mom even started working at a library, where she would meet other women of her age and make new friends. This is how 2 years went by, until my mother informed us out of the blue that she was seeing somebody. She told us how excited she was for us to meet him and how he was perfect for her. We were happy but also a bit curious about this mystery man who had captured our mom's heart. When we visited my mom, we were shocked when we met this mystery man, Derek. This supposed boyfriend of my mom was almost the same age as me. At first, we tried to keep an open mind, but the more we watched them interact with each other, it was difficult for us to accept the situation. We found their age difference to be quite creepy. Additionally, we suspected he was taking advantage of her. In just a matter of a few months, she had bought him expensive gifts and even put him on the deed of her house that stepdad had given her. Moreover, the way they met seemed suspicious. When we asked her about it, she became uncomfortable and lied that they met at a cafe. However, when he spoke to us, he wanted to be truthful and told us the real story. Apparently, he and his friends were at a pub getting blackout drunk. My mother was there with her friends to celebrate her friend's retirement. Derek's friends dared him to find and kiss a cougar, and he somehow chose our mom. They made out, and Mom invited him back to her place. Since then, he hasn't left her side or this home. When they started to get serious, he insisted my mom add his name to the deed of the house with a pretext that they were going to get married anyway in a few months. He told her a sob story about how expensive rent was and how he couldn't afford living on his own anymore, and Mom decided to let him stay with her until he could get back on his own feet. They had started off as friends with benefits, but that slowly turned into dating, and now Mom seemed like she was head over heels about him. Clearly, Derek was taking advantage of her, and Mom was lapping up all his attention. We stayed with him for a few days, and throughout this entire time we noticed that he didn't work at all. Derek would wake up at 11 a.m. and then start playing video games. The only time he would ever come out of the room would be when me and Serena would cook something for ourselves. He would then insist on us making him a plate also. While he was a good-for-nothing, Mom would work the whole day at the library. She would then come back home and cook for him while he would complain to her if he didn't like her cooking. She would literally baby him as if he were her child. Clearly, he was using her and she was too blind to see it. On our last day before we were flying back, we decided to finally call him out and have a serious discussion with Mom. We pointed out how he wasn't doing anything around the house while she was paying for all his expenses and had even added him to the house deed, which was so unfair since they were not married. This resulted in a huge fight with Derek saying how we had no right to judge their relationship and that if we continued to complain, then he would teach us a lesson we would never forget. We were shocked to see how Mom's young boyfriend was clearly threatening us. Yet despite all this, Mom tried to defend him, saying how he was a good man and we needed to spend more time with him to see that. When we questioned her regarding the deed of the house, she said that Derek and she were going to get married, so she trusted him and that we should not interfere in their relationship. This was really difficult for us to hear since clearly she was getting back to her old ways of trusting her partners more than her own daughters. She was clearly picking this guy over us and believing that he would take care of her. She had made such a huge decision without even consulting us and now kept on justifying it despite all the evidence. Mom was clearly blind to how Derek was using her. We did argue a bit more, but she told us that if we couldn't accept him, then we should just leave since this was their house and we needed to respect him. This was the last straw for us, so Serena and I decided that we were done with her. It broke our hearts to see how she picked her boyfriend over us. After this incident, we didn't visit our mom much, nor did she call us. She had clearly made her choice, and we wanted to respect it. A month ago, Serena and I woke up to multiple missed calls from Mom. It had been a long while since she had called us. I called her back out of concern, and she picked up to say that she was flying to see us and requested I arrange an Uber for her to come to our place. I asked her firmly if her so-called boyfriend was coming also, because if he was, then he wasn't allowed inside our place. But my mother said no and didn't elaborate much, which was suspicious. When Mom came, she looked utterly disheveled. We were concerned about her and sat her down. I asked her if something was wrong. This is when Mom broke down crying, beating her chest in despair. We were completely taken aback by her reaction, which is how we knew that something was wrong. Serena gave her a glass of water to help calm her down. Eventually, my mother started telling us exactly what had happened. You see, after she stopped talking to us, Derek started taking advantage of her, knowing that he had her isolated from us and there was no one she could turn to. He convinced her to sell the house they were living in, saying that they needed a much bigger one before they got married. She foolishly agreed, and they eventually sold the house. This is when Derek kept all the money from the sale of the house, which he then used to buy another house under his name. When Mom found out about this, she asked him to add her name to the deed also, but he got angry, saying that he was a man so the house should rightfully belong to him only. He promised to add her to the will so she could have it. This was ridiculous since Mom was older than him, so clearly she was never going to get the house. When Mom kept arguing about how it wasn't fair, he got even more angry, and this is when he got physically violent with her. Mom ran out of the house in fear and with a little money she had left in her bank account, booked a direct flight to come and see us. Serena and I sat there listening to her in horror. She continued to tell us how blinded by affection and longing, she had no assets left to her name now. Almost all her savings were also gone because she had spent it all on him, believing he would be her knight in shining armor. Tears streamed down her face as she told us how family is all she has left. Hence, now she wants us to help her out. As I am sitting here writing this, my mother is sleeping off her exhaustion in the next room. I am so angry at her, and there are so many things I want to tell her, but I don't know if I should say it. She chose a stranger over her own flesh and blood and now expects us to help her. Will I be in a hole if I refuse to help my mom? I am afraid that she will fall victim again to the next guy who talks sweetly to her and might drop me and Serena again. Date 1. Thank you all for the supportive comments over the last few days. I am glad to see there are other people like me who understand what I'm going through. Just to clarify a few things, my mother in her own will allow Derek to take the entire money from the sale of her house, so she can't really sue him since she was the one who consented, as well as she added him to the deed. My mother is also refusing to go to the police regarding the emotional and physical abuse she has sustained. She says that society will look down on her if she decides to come out with this and file an official complaint. This frustrates me to no end because she is not doing anything to help herself, yet she expects me and Serena to forget everything and help her out in the name of family, which is absolutely ridiculous. I do plan on talking to her since I can't have her traumatizing us again with her drama. I don't think she will ever change, hence I don't want to be dragged down with her. Serena also agrees with me, and being her older sister, I want to protect her as much as I can. Update 2. Hey everyone. It's been 2 weeks since I last updated. I wanted to give some time for our mom to recover so I could speak my mind to her. After much deliberation, Serena and I sat down with her yesterday in a calm and collected manner to have a talk with her. In short, we began by expressing our concerns and frustrations about her situation with Derek. We told her how we acknowledged her pain and the difficult position she found herself in. I made it clear to her that we empathized with her, and until she decided to take action against Derek's actions, which were clearly manipulative and abusive, there was nothing more that we could do. My mother's eyes widened hearing this, and she asked what we were getting at. I urged her to reconsider her decision not to involve the authorities, emphasizing that seeking help was not a sign of weakness but a brave step towards reclaiming control over her life. I reassured her that society's judgment should not outweigh her safety and well-being. But Mom vehemently refused, saying this was her life and she had already made her decision. Hearing this, my mind was made up as well. I told her how throughout our lives, she always seemed to put her partners ahead of us, whether it was our stepdad or Derek. We were tired of feeling like we came second in her life. Mom tried to interrupt, saying she would change, but Serena firmly spoke up. She said she was fed up with not having a stable family and wanted Mom to stop drifting in and out of our lives whenever it suited her. I nodded in agreement, adding that family meant everything, which is why Mom should have thought about that before choosing Derek. We reminded her how we had warned her about him, but she still chose to push us away. Serena and I agreed that we couldn't keep picking up the pieces every time she found it convenient. Mom started crying, accusing us of being ungrateful and selfish. It was a tough conversation, filled with emotions and tension, but we needed to get our feelings out in the open. Serena told her how I was more of a mother to her than her own mother, and we were strong enough now to not need her in our lives anymore. Mom continued to cry silently while I gently told her that she had 1 week left, after which we would be kicking her out. Mom started screaming about where she could go, and I told her that if she wanted, we could help her out with a few initial months of rent while she could work and save up money, after which she would be on her own. Mom started getting angry, saying how she wished she never had us. But we ignored her and told her that she was welcome to ask her family for help if she wanted to. After this, to give Mom some space, I took Serena out for some ice cream. In the car, both of us cried a little since this was such a difficult conversation for us to have. But it was much needed. I hope our mom makes the right decision and works towards changing her life rather than resenting us for her own mistakes. Only time will tell if my mom will heed our words and take the necessary steps to reclaim her life. Update 3. Hello. Wow, it's been 3 months since my last update, and I am back now with a small update since I've been getting a lot of DMs regarding this. Everything is well with us and our mom. Despite how much she yelled at us after our conversation, she had no choice but to go back to her city and resume her job. While we agreed to pay for her rent for the next 6 months, before going, she apologized to us again and has been unusually sweet to us. Don't worry, we are not sending her any money directly, but we send the rent money directly to the owner so she can't use our money elsewhere. After her getting scammed out of so much money, we are obviously a bit nervous. She hasn't been in contact with Derek since their breakup, so I guess he is living his grand life. There is nothing that we can do against him when Mom herself doesn't decide to file a complaint. Anyway, Serena and I are doing well in our lives. I have been promoted, so I'm quite happy with my job. Serena is also excelling in her career, and I am proud of her. We are focused on building a strong bond between us, supporting each other through thick and thin. Despite the challenges with our mom, we're determined to create our own stable life. We are learning to prioritize our own well-being and happiness first, knowing that's what truly matters in the end. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Husband blew up at my family barbecue and left me stranded. Now he says he'll only go to marriage counseling if I beg for his forgiveness first. I, 34F, and my husband, 35M, have just gone through the biggest fight we ever had, and it seems like divorce is inevitable. We have been together for 7 years and married for 2. No kids yet, but I recently found out I am pregnant. It's so early in the pregnancy that only my mom, 58F, knows as of now. About 2 months ago, everything was fine in our relationship. We live in Toronto in a condo, and we just got a puppy a couple of weeks ago. We obviously had the usual spats like most couples here and there, but nothing unmanageable. Recently, my husband has got it into his head that we should move to Calgary due to its cheaper cost of living and the raising expenses in Toronto. It was worth considering. I was not and still am not 100% sold because one thing my husband refuses to consider in this decision is that we have a lot of family here. If anything were to happen, I know we have support from them, and out there we'd be on our own. More info. We are very close with my family. My mom, brother, 32M, and SIL, 27F, live about 20 minutes away, and we see them and my extended family very often. We are not so close with his family. He has no communication with his sisters and only tolerates his parents. His parents never really accepted me because of my religion, and despite trying with them several times, it came to the point where only he communicates with them. I try to push him to mend those relationships because I think he needs it. Family kind of fell apart when he was 17, and he seems to really like being around family, especially when he's with mine. So I figure with my pregnancy, maybe we can start from scratch with his side of the family and building that relationship again. He was actually on board with me messaging his sisters and letting them know I was pregnant. The problem? On Saturday, my brother had a barbecue and we and our new puppy went over. About a week before the barbecue, my husband told my mom about Calgary. My mom was not a fan as she didn't think it was a good idea for us. I wasn't thrilled either because we have nothing planned and I felt there was no need in mentioning it yet as we didn't even know when and if we were going to go. During the barbecue, I asked my husband not to mention it because I saw how upset it made my mom and I wanted to have a good time. He promised me he wouldn't. Now a bit more background. My brother got married last year and had his reception this year in May after his wife got her visa to come to Canada. My mom helped with the finances for both events. My brother feels like it's not fair that he got a wedding and reception and I didn't get either. We got married in City Hall and didn't do a reception and got our condo instead. So during the barbecue we were talking and my brother said we should think about it and throw a little party. To be honest, I would consider it now, but my brother doesn't know I'm pregnant and I don't feel like I want to do that now. I'd rather focus on our future with the baby. During this conversation, when my brother said, "Think about it," my husband says in front of everyone, "I don't want to feed those people. We are going to Calgary." I was very upset at this because firstly, he wasn't supposed to mention Calgary and secondly, the way he said it was so rude. My husband noticed my mood changed and asked me what was wrong. When I told him privately why I was upset, he got mad at me for my feelings and decided he wanted to leave the barbecue. Keep in mind, we came in one vehicle and we had the puppy with us and all his stuff. The barbecue was pretty much done, so really we were going to leave soon anyways, but my husband made a production of looking for car keys and making a grand exit. When he couldn't find the keys, he kept rudely asking me to give him the keys. We were by the front door and I told him to go outside and calm down. Give me a few minutes to pack up the puppy and we could leave together. But he was adamant. When I didn't give him the keys, he raised his voice and started swearing more. And that's when my brother came to see the commotion. He got into a verbal argument with my brother and my SIL dragged my brother away. But words were still exchanged. I was crying at this point because he's never been this way in front of my family. I gave him the keys and he ran to the car. I went after him to try to get him to calm down and wait for me, but he drove off while I was standing right there. The neighbors saw and it was such commotion. I know in hindsight I should have just given him the keys, but in the moment, I really didn't think along those lines and I was worried about how it would look that he just drove off and left me and our puppy behind and I'd have to ask one of them for a ride home. When I tried to call him on the drive, he said it was all my fault that I caused his character to be assassinated in front of my family. My maternal grandparents live with my mom and heard the yelling too. That I don't respect him and I should have just obeyed him. When I got dropped off, my mom was afraid to let me be alone with him, but I told her I'd be okay and thought we could talk it out. In trying to talk, he continued to say it was all my fault, but I felt that he was to blame too as he could have just left and called an Uber or gone for a walk instead of raising his voice and bringing the unwanted attention. I didn't like that he didn't consider for 1 second how his pregnant wife and puppy were going to get home. Talking led to more fighting and airing of a lot of dirty laundry. All the repressed feelings and resent bubbled over and things from past fights surfaced. This back and forth of arguing and talking has been going on for the past 2 days. We both haven't gone into work and are questioning if we should be together. I don't know if divorce is the answer here, but what I'm really wondering is, if he's right, was it my fault and was I being disrespectful? Do we try to reconcile or let this relationship go? Any advice is appreciated and thank you in advance. Additional info. Hi everyone. Thank you very much for everything that you have said. I have literally read every single comment and thought I should provide more info. It should say, husband blew up at a barbecue. Neither of us drinks. This happened while sober. Some people are wondering if we see my family too much and it might be a lot for my husband to handle. We see them maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, typically on the weekend. Often it's only a drop-in to say hello or grab some food. More often, I drop in on my own. Some people think my family might be too involved in our relationship. My husband has often said that my family has done more for him than any of his family has. And in fact, when he first had the idea of moving to Calgary, he suggested that we tell my mom right away and move her out there with us. My husband is willing to have my mom move in with us to assist with childcare. Also, my extended family has experienced a lot and are very knowledgeable when it comes to life lessons like buying a home, and it's always my husband's idea to seek them out and ask for their advice before we do something. My husband knows I'm pregnant as we have been trying for a few months. He was the first person I told, and my mother was second. Yes, I did say that he's never blown up like that in front of my family before, but he has in front of me many times. Sometimes our arguments go to the point where he says that he's going to leave or start shouting at me angrily. I'm not going to say I'm completely blameless as I do shout back, but at the end of most of them, I end up trying apologizing and then we are good again. For those wondering about culture being at play, we are both first-generation North American. He was born in the USA and I was born in Canada. He's a dual citizen. We are both of South Asian descent, but come from different religious backgrounds. Neither of us is particularly religious, but we respect that our parents are. Date 1. We have been talking and arguing on and off since all of this has gone on, and I even showed him a lot of the comments. He thinks the comments are not worth putting stock into because everyone who commented was not there in the situation. I asked him to read my post and tell me if I made an error in recounting what happened, but he didn't find one and felt that I was accurate. I suggested we do counseling as I suspect that this blow-up has some roots in his anger issues which have been unresolved since his family sort of fell apart. He goes back and forth agreeing to do counseling and then saying that he doesn't want to. He thinks that I need to be the first to apologize and beg for his forgiveness, and then he can apologize for the subsequent things that he did after. When he says obey, he means it in the traditional sense where women in the relationship are subservient to their husband. For those who wondered about our financial situation, it's not good. He lost his job 2 months ago and is applying to return to his former place of employment. He's still in the process as it takes time even to be rehired. During this time, he has been home while I continue to work. He had received a huge retro pay before all of this and promised to buy me a ring with that money. When he lost his job, the smart thing to do was use that money to help ensure we could get by, and that's what we have been doing. But that also meant my ring got put on the back burner. I'm not going to lie that I wasn't annoyed by that because my ring has always been on the back burner, but I also know that the smart thing was to hold on to that money to get us by. During our arguments, I finally was able to express how I've been feeling in our relationship. I let him know that for the last 7 years, I felt like he was very dismissive and devalued how I felt about anything, whether the issue be big or small. Anytime I expressed my feelings towards something, I was often met with comments like, "I don't want to hear it," or was brushed off. So, for the course of our relationship, I've often had to push down my feelings so that it wouldn't cause a rift between us, and these last few days, all of that bubbled over. He felt that I was explaining all of this out of the blue and under the influence of my mother. I tried to explain that it feels out of the blue for him because each time I tried to express myself in the past, he shut me down. So now, for him, it's the first time. He believes I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, that the trivial things he does or certain behaviors he exhibits are not as bad as things could be. For example, when I say he has some anger and attitude issues to work out, his reply is that I should be grateful that it's only that minor and that he's not actually being physically abusive, that the girl who gets beaten and starved and raped has it worse than my problems are. I don't think that's a fair comparison to make. I'm not saying those women have it easy, of course not, but problems in our relationship that matter to me should be considered important too. He asked me to make a list of the issues I have with him, and with each item, he provided 1 or 2 examples where he proved otherwise. But what he doesn't seem to grasp is that it's the overall lack of effort in our marriage that bothers me. One example of this is that I work longer hours than he does. Also, my commute is about an hour, if not more. So during these 2 months, while I'm at work and he's home, it bothers me to come home and see his lunch plate sitting on the table. I don't get why he can't pick up after himself, especially if he is home all day. He says that's a minor thing, but I think it boils down to respect. I'm the one who was at work all day and is tired when I come home, so to leave it for me makes me feel disrespected. His response to this is to show me videos of women saying they put up with their husband's minor flaws because of what he provides. To be honest, I know this is a minor flaw, and if we were sitting together, I have no issues grabbing his plate with mine when we get up from the table, but I feel like it's different when he's home and I'm working. We eventually got to the point where he started crying and said he didn't know that I thought he was such a terrible person and he can't believe that I've been miserable for the last 7 years, that we should get a divorce because I'm so unhappy. He also said that he tried his best with his limited means and it saddens him that it's not enough for me, that despite his lack of knowledge, he tried to make my life easier and give me opportunities to use my knowledge and skills to help our family. This is where my heart starts to break for him because I know that he was at a disadvantage due to his family falling apart. He didn't get to learn certain skills or have a role model to look up to. I feel pain when he says those things because I know I'm the only person in his corner to help him. I just feel like not everyone grows up with the same opportunities as everyone else, but if you want to succeed in life, then you got to put in some effort and hard work. If you don't know something, learn it. If you're unsure about something, find someone to ask. Eventually, we ended up at a stalemate. I said I thought counseling would benefit us and especially him, and he says that he would only do it if I apologized to him for letting this fight go on for too long, that I should have begged for his forgiveness already and be a good wife. Then and only then would he consider therapy. I feel like I couldn't look myself in the eye if I did that. I know some people thought I should have just given him the keys that day, but in the heat of the moment, that didn't happen. I feel like there's 1,000,001 things he could have done differently too, so I shouldn't be the one to apologize, and his actions after the day due to his uncontrollable anger are far worse than my not giving him the keys. During this stalemate, he starts to say that once he leaves me, I'll have what's coming to me because I'll be 34 and single and alone. I won't be able to find a man and I'll look back and regret this. I really feel like despite my better judgment, I tried my best to salvage whatever I could of this relationship, but if he can't give me effort to try to work on it, then we are doomed. I am seeking out counseling for myself as I know that there's a lot for me to talk through. I don't know about the baby yet. I have my age to consider and that I've always wanted to be a mom. I have my family to support me if I do end up being a single mom. What I want to know is, at any time during all of this, should I have done something differently? Now on to the next story. Story 5. My sister just rejected her boyfriend's marriage proposal because he wanted her to stop being my caretaker. Because I'm disabled, I begged her to choose him. I'm a disabled, 21-year-old male. I live with my older sister who's 27. I've been a paraplegic since I was a kid as a result of an accident. Our remaining parent, our dad, is pretty old and sick. He's in an old folks' home. My sister takes me to see him occasionally. My sister is pretty much my full-time carer. She has her own job which she works to support both of us. And when she's not on her job, she's usually taking care of me. She's had a very serious boyfriend for 9 years. They've been in a relationship since she was 18. It's always been a very serious relationship as far as I can tell. He's a really good guy, and he's always been nice to me. He also hasn't shied away from offering financial help once in a while. I know my sister has always dreamed of marriage. We talk about it so much, me and her, ever since we were kids. We did play weddings. She would always imagine the day she would get married, spend hours looking at bridal dresses. Even as an adult, she would fantasize about getting married and spend a lot of the time looking at bridal dresses, talking about her dream wedding, what kind of house she'd like to have. She had names picked out for the kids since she was a kid herself, and she's always stuck with those names. So yeah, she's always dreamed of getting married and having a family for a long time. Her current boyfriend has been with her for so long and has been so good to her. I figured he would always be the one to marry her and I'd be happy for her. Finally, she'd have someone to take care of her instead of her having to take care of me all the time. Well, that all came crumbling down. She returned home one day a complete mess, crying and pouring her eyes out all over the place. She told me they'd broken up, it was over. She was so sad. Oh, so sad. It was heartbreaking to see it. It was like a dagger in my heart to see her crying and upset like that. And I felt so useless because all I could offer were meaningless words. She wouldn't tell me why. I figured she just didn't want to talk about it. After a few days, she still didn't want to talk about it. She was still incredibly upset, crying a lot. I told her, I'm her brother. I may be physically disabled, but my heart and mind still work perfectly. She can talk to me about anything. Very reluctantly and with pushing, she opened up about it. She told me her boyfriend had proposed to her. I told her, that's excellent. Why did they break up? She had always wanted to get married and had been waiting years for this. She told me they had talked about it, and her boyfriend wanted her to move in with him. They would find a separate carer for me to look after. They would still see me occasionally, but I would not visit them, and my sister would no longer be my carer at all. My sister told me she couldn't accept that, and that was the offer on the table as her boyfriend wanted it. She said she couldn't accept it. They couldn't reconcile their different wants, and they broke up. I told her she's crazy. She should have chosen her boyfriend. I know she loved him so much, and he was crazy about her. She should have gone and gotten married. She can't stay tied to me forever. She should live her own life and have her own family. She was still crying heavily, and she told me she realized that she would never be able to have that. All that stuff she wanted as a kid, to be a bride, have a wedding, have a family, none of it would ever happen. She would be taking care of me forever. I insisted to her, telling her she didn't need to take care of me forever. She should live her own life. She said, "No, that's what she wants, that's the way it has to be. She would have it no other way." When I kept insisting, she said, "No, that's it. She's in charge. She makes her own life decisions, and I should stop telling her how to live her life." She got angry at me and I quickly apologized. She said, "It's okay." But I could tell she was really upset and in a bad mood. Why is she doing this to herself? I don't understand. Doesn't she see that I don't want her to sacrifice herself like this? Why did she just give up her boyfriend of 9 years like that? She loved him so much and he loved her. So why did she just push him away like that? Why is she hurting herself like that? I don't want her to be hurting herself just for my sake. I never asked her to make this sacrifice of herself. I told her I wouldn't mind getting another carer for me. She said, "No, it's her. It has to be her. It's her job, it's her duty to me and to our family. She has to take care of me, always. She wouldn't have it any other way, no matter how much I tried to reason." I hate myself so much right now. I've never hated being disabled more than right now in my life. I feel like a baby or something, like a useless animal. I feel like a ball and chain, like a burden tying her down to the ground and preventing her from living her own life. All I want her to do is to be happy and live her life and be happy and beautiful on her wedding day like she's always wanted. Not stuck forever taking care of her disabled brother. I wish I could just die to free her of her burden. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't seriously considered just killing myself so she could finally be free and pursue her own life. I'm not just saying that. I'm serious. I know she'd mourn me for a while, maybe even a few years, but after that, she'd move on and get married and live her life like she's always wanted. It might be the only way she ever knows true happiness. I tried to convince her, but she seems determined to bog herself down like this. I don't understand. She's not being reasonable. She's not looking out for what's best for herself. Why is she doing this? How can I get her to focus on herself and her own life? Please guys, help me out. How can I talk some sense into her? How can I convince her to put her needs ahead of my own and to go focus on her life, mainly so she can live the life she's always wanted instead of being chained down to me? How can I convince her of this? Please help. I feel so desperate and sad for her. Comment where OP has replied. Comment. Can you contact a social worker to work as a mediator between the two of you so that you can get the care you need but still maintain a relationship with her in which she is just your sister, not your carer? P. Absolutely. There are many options. I discussed it with her and told her I could easily find programs that would provide a carer, albeit with added expenses, so my sister no longer has to be my carer and she can go and live her own life. She wasn't interested. She is absolutely stubborn and determined. She seems to have it stuck in her head that she has to be my carer permanently. I don't know why. Update 1. Okay, so this is an update to the post I made 2 nights ago. I just want to first of all say thank you so much to all those of you who posted extremely kind and heartwarming comments. That was amazing of you. Thank you so much. I'm also feeling much better now. I understand things much clearer and talked it over with my sister. It seems I was confused, and in the heat of the moment, there was a lot of misunderstanding. I have talked it all over with my sister, and we are both feeling much better and brighter now, and we agree things may have turned out for the best. I now realize, after my sister explained it to me, that he was not right for her, even though they had been together so long. I guess the length of their relationship had left me with a false impression. Firstly, as my sister explained it, it seems he didn't say I couldn't visit at all as I had thought she meant, but that I just couldn't visit whenever I wanted to. They'd set times and schedules for when I could visit to ensure I wasn't over all the time, interrupting and interfering with their lives. However, it seems my sister didn't like this at all. She said she realized her boyfriend had a problem with me and wanted to place some distance between her and me, and she wasn't okay with that at all. I told her I thought she loved him. She said she thought she did too, but she knows her priorities in life, and she is old enough and mature enough to be able to decide what she wants from life and what her priorities are. I told her I thought she'd always wanted to get married and have children and a family ever since she was young. She explained to me she still does, to a certain extent, but only if the conditions are right. She said that she was a different person when she was younger. Now that she's older, her ideals and priorities have changed. She said that if she does get married, it's basically like what one commenter described as a package deal. I'd have to be included in the family too, and I'd have to live with them and be part of their family full-time. She said if any potential husband couldn't accept that, then he could get stuffed and she didn't want him. That's basically what she thinks of her now ex-boyfriend, and she said she feels much more positive about her future now that he's gone. She said while she was with him, she was always feeling unsure about what the future held in relation to her and me, but now that she's made her firm decision, she knows she'll never let go of me. I asked her, what if this means that she'll never get married? What if it means that she never ends up finding a guy who's okay with all this and is willing to settle down with her with me in the mix? She said, if that's the case, then so be it. As she explained it, she basically said, I'm her family now. I exist and I'm the most important thing to her. She won't sacrifice me for a hypothetical husband and hypothetical children who don't yet exist but may one day. She said priority number one for her will always be me and taking care of me throughout my life and disability. She couldn't imagine living her life without it. I told her, but didn't she feel she was severely limiting herself by chaining herself to me? Didn't she feel she was severely restricting her opportunities in life and what she could become? She explained that her years with me and taking care of me had helped form part of her identity. Taking care of me now is part of her identity and character. It's one of the things she lives for. I found that amazing, but she said she could have it no other way. I provide to her just as much as she provides to me, she said, and perhaps even more. I told her she was exaggerating, but she insisted it was absolutely true. She explained how the mere fact of her looking after me and her taking care of me day in, day out brings so much joy and happiness to her life. She doesn't know how she could ever live without it, and to her, it's so much more important than the possibility of having a husband or children. I found it difficult to wrap my head around that. I joked that I really can't imagine that it's always that fun, especially when she's, say, wiping from my ass or something. She just laughed and explained how sometimes something that can superficially seem gross, disgusting, or painful can still be beautiful and cherished when you look at the love involved. She used the example of a mother giving birth. After 9 months of sickness and swollen body, she has her body ripped open. There's blood everywhere, screaming and crying, and it's the most intense physical pain of her life. But at the end of it all, it's still beautiful because it's an act of love, and she endures all that pain to bring to life someone whom she will love forever. So yes, even acts like wiping from my ass, as gross and disgusting as it may seem to some, is in itself an act of love and an example of how much she as a sister cherishes me as her brother, and the lengths she will go to as a result of that relationship. And that, I think, is beautiful and true love. So now I have a completely new outlook on her and our life. It's much more positive, and I no longer see myself as a burden or a chain. She helped me realize my own self-worth and value. I'm not just some disabled guy in a wheelchair that needs help. I'm a brother, and I provide love, friendship, and value to this amazing, beautiful, kind-hearted woman I am so proud to call my sister. I no longer have any thoughts about ending my life at all because I realize how much I am worth to her and how much I mean to her, and how much it would hurt her if I did that. And I could never bear to do that. So I just thought I'd share that update with you all after all those incredibly warm and supportive comments you gave me were so uplifting. I can honestly say, Even though I may be physically disabled, I consider myself to have this amazing gift because I'm blessed with love, and this love is the most amazing thing in the world. I can't imagine living without it. Thank you all so very much. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Refused to listen to my SIL and pay $2,000 for my brother's wedding. His bridezilla fiancé kicked me out of the bridal party and my whole family turned against me. I'm a 28-year-old woman, and until recently I thought I had a pretty good relationship with my family. We weren't perfect, but we were close. Or so I thought. It all started with my older brother's wedding, and now I'm labeled as the family's black sheep. Let me take you through this mess. My brother, let's call him Derek, is 32. He's always been the golden child in our family. Successful career, in personality, and now about to get married to his girlfriend of 3 years, Carol, 30. I was genuinely happy for them when they announced their engagement 6 months ago. Carol seemed nice enough, although I didn't know her that well. We met a few times at family gatherings, and while we weren't close, I thought we got along fine. Our family isn't huge, but we're tight-knit. There's me, Derek, our younger sister Tracy, 25, and our parents. We grew up in a small town and our extended family. Aunts, uncles, cousins all live nearby. Family has always been a big deal for us, especially for our mom. She's the type who wants everyone together for every holiday, birthday, and special occasion. Dad's more laid back, but he goes along with whatever Mom wants. When Derek and Carol got engaged, Mom went into full wedding planning mode. You'd think it was her wedding, not theirs. Carol seemed okay with it at first, probably because she didn't want to upset her future mother-in-law. But looking back, I can see the signs of trouble brewing. About 4 months before the wedding, Derek called me. He sounded excited, and I thought he was just calling to chat about wedding plans. But then he said he wanted me to be a bridesmaid. I was surprised because Carol and I weren't that close, but I figured she was trying to include me as family. I agreed, feeling honored and looking forward to being part of their special day. That's when things started to go downhill fast. The first red flag was the bridesmaid dress fitting. Carol had chosen these horrible puffy, bright orange dresses that looked like something out of a bad 80s prom movie. When I gently suggested that maybe we could look at some other options, Carol burst into tears. She accused me of trying to ruin her perfect day and ran out of the bridal shop. Derek called me later that night asking why I had upset Carol. I tried to explain, but he wouldn't listen. He just told me to apologize and go along with whatever Carol wanted. I swallowed my pride and apologized, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. I thought that would be the end of it. But oh boy, was I wrong. The next issue came up during the bridal shower planning. As a bridesmaid, I was expected to help with the preparations. Carol had this elaborate vision of a great Gatsby-themed party, complete with a champagne mountain, live jazz band, and vintage cars for photo ops. The cost was astronomical. When I brought up concerns about the budget, suggesting we could still have a beautiful party without breaking the bank, Carol lost it again. She screamed at me, saying I was jealous of her and trying to sabotage her shower. She then demanded that I contribute $2,000 towards the party expenses. I was shocked. That was way more than I could afford, especially with all the other wedding expenses piling up. When I told her I couldn't pay that much, she called me selfish and cheap. The situation escalated quickly. Carol told Derek that I was being difficult and trying to ruin everything. Derek, instead of talking to me directly, told our parents. Soon I was getting calls and texts from Mom, Dad, and even our aunts, all telling me to just do what Carol wanted and stop causing problems. I felt like I was going crazy. How was I the bad guy here? I tried to explain my side, but no one wanted to listen. They all kept saying, "It's just one day. Can't you do this for your brother?" But it wasn't just one day. It was months of stress, unreasonable demands, and financial strain. The final straw came about 6 weeks before the wedding. Carol decided that all the bridesmaids needed to lose weight to fit into the dresses she had chosen. She set up a group chat and started sending us daily workout routines and diet plans. She even suggested we all get small cosmetic procedures done, like Botox and lip fillers, to look perfect for her wedding photos. I was furious. This was body shaming, plain and simple. I told Carol that I wouldn't be changing my body for her wedding, and that her demands were inappropriate and harmful. She went ballistic. She kicked me out of the bridal party, calling me fat, ugly, and a terrible sister-in-law. I was hurt and angry, but also relieved to be out of the bridal party. However, the family drama was far from over. Derek called me yelling about how I had ruined everything and demanding that I apologize to Carol and begged to be let back into the bridal party. When I refused, he told me I was no longer welcome at the wedding. I was heartbroken, not just because I was uninvited from my own brother's wedding, but because my entire family seemed to have turned against me. Mom and Dad were furious, saying I was tearing the family apart with my selfishness. Tracy, who was still a bridesmaid, told me I should have just gone along with everything to keep the peace. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a nightmare. I was excluded from all family events and conversations. My phone was flooded with messages from relatives, some begging me to apologize, others berating me for being difficult. I felt isolated and betrayed. The day of the wedding came and I spent it alone in my apartment, scrolling through social media and seeing all the happy photos of my family celebrating without me. It hurt more than I can express. I cried. I screamed into my pillow. I even considered showing up at the venue to confront them all. But in the end, I stayed home, feeling like an outcast from my own family. The day after the wedding, I woke up to a barrage of angry messages. Apparently, my absence had been the talk of the wedding. Carol had told everyone that I had tried to sabotage her big day out of jealousy and that I had said horrible things about her. None of it was true, but it didn't matter. In the eyes of my family, I was now the villain. I tried to defend myself, to explain what really happened, but no one wanted to listen. Derek told me he needed time away from me, to heal from what I'd done. Mom said she was ashamed of me. Dad, who had always been my friend, just sighed and said he was disappointed. It's been 2 weeks since the wedding and I feel like I'm living in a bizarre alternate reality. How did standing up for myself turn me into the family pariah? I've always been close with my family. Now I'm the black sheep, the one they whisper about in a void. I'm hurt, angry, and confused. For now, I'm taking some time for myself. I've muted the family group chats and I'm not responding to the guilt-tripping messages. I need to figure out where I go from here, how I navigate this new family dynamic where I'm suddenly the outsider. I never imagined a wedding could tear a family apart like this. I always thought blood was thicker than water, but now I'm not so sure. All I know is that I'm not the same person I was before this all started, and my relationship with my family will never be the same either. Update 1. I want to start by thanking everyone who took the time to read and respond to my story. The support and validation I've received from this community have been overwhelming and incredibly helpful during this difficult time. Many of you pointed out that Carol's behavior was not just bridezilla antics, but bordered on abusive. The comments about her body shaming and unreasonable financial demands really opened my eyes to how toxic the situation had become. I realized now that I wasn't overreacting. If anything, I probably should have stood up for myself sooner. A lot of you also expressed concern about my sister Tracy and how she's coping with all of this. Your comments made me realize that I needed to reach out to her, which I'll get to in a moment. Thank you all again for your support and advice. It means more than you know. Now, let me update you on what's been happening since my last post. It's been about a month since my last post and things have only gotten more complicated. I thought that maybe with some time and distance, my family would calm down and be willing to hear my side of the story. I was wrong. About 2 weeks after the wedding, my mom called me. For a moment, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe she was ready to listen, to understand. But as soon as I answered, I knew that wasn't the case. She wasn't calling to reconcile. She was calling to demand that I apologize to Derek and Carol. According to Mom, Carol was devastated by my absence at the wedding. She said that Carol cried during the reception because her sister wasn't there. I nearly choked when I heard that. Carol and I were never close, and she certainly never considered me a sister before. It was clear that she was playing the victim and my family was eating it up. Mom went on to say that Derek and Carol were planning to start trying for a baby soon, and that if I didn't make things right, I might not be allowed to be part of my future niece or nephew's life. She actually said, Do you want to be the aunt that the kids never meet because she was too stubborn to apologize? I was speechless. I couldn't believe my own mother was using potential future grandchildren as emotional blackmail. When I finally found my voice, I told her that I had nothing to apologize for. I hadn't done anything wrong. I had simply stood up for myself against Carol's unreasonable and often cruel demands. Mom's response? Sometimes we have to apologize even when we don't think we're wrong, for the sake of family harmony. I ended the call soon after that, feeling drained and even more hurt than before. It was becoming clear that in my family's eyes, harmony meant everyone bowing to Derek and Carol's wishes, no matter how unreasonable. The next day, I received a long email from Derek. I thought, finally, maybe he's ready to hear me out. But as I read, my heart sank. The email was pages long, detailing every perceived slight and offense I had committed, not just during the wedding planning, but apparently throughout our entire lives. He accused me of always being jealous of him, of trying to steal the spotlight. He brought up incidents from our childhood, twisting them to paint me as the villain. According to Derek, I'd always been selfish and difficult, and my behavior during the wedding planning was just the last straw. What hurt the most was how he described our relationship. He wrote about how he had always tolerated me, how he had put up with my presence at family events. Reading those words, I felt like my entire childhood was being rewritten. Had he always felt this way? Had our sibling bond been a lie? I didn't respond to the email. Couldn't. Every word felt like a knife to my heart, and I knew that anything I said would just be twisted and used against me. A few days later, I ran into my sister Tracy at the grocery store. It was awkward, to say the least. She looked uncomfortable, like she didn't know whether to hug me or run away. We made small talk for a few minutes, dancing around the elephant in the room. Finally, I asked her how she was really doing. Tracy broke down right there in the middle of the produce section. Through her tears, she told me that she felt caught in the middle. She said she knew that Carol's demands had been out of line, but she didn't want to rock the boat. She admitted that being a bridesmaid had been a nightmare, with Carol micromanaging everything from their diets to their social media posts. I asked Tracy why she hadn't spoken up, why she had let me take all the blame. Her response was telling, "I was scared. I didn't want to end up like you, cut off from everyone." We talked for a while longer, and I could see the guilt eating away at her. Before we parted, I told her that I didn't blame her, that I understood the pressure she was under. I also told her that she could always come to me if she needed support. The encounter with Tracy left me with a lot to think about. It was clear that the family dynamics were more toxic than I had realized. Carol's behavior had exposed cracks that had probably been there all along, hidden beneath the surface of our happy family. I decided to reach out to a therapist. I needed another perspective. While Reddit has been amazing to me, there are a bunch of people calling me a doormat and other mean things. Someone who could help me navigate these choppy emotional waters. In our first session, the therapist suggested that I might be dealing with a family system that prioritized the appearance of harmony over actual healthy relationships. She also pointed out that my brother's email sounded like classic projection and gaslighting. By accusing me of jealousy and spotlight stealing, he might actually be revealing his own insecurities and issues. As for my parents, the therapist suggested that their behavior might stem from a deep-seated fear of conflict and change. By pressuring me to apologize and fall in line, they were trying to restore the status quo, even if that status quo was unhealthy. It was a lot to process, but it also felt liberating to have someone validate my feelings and experiences. For the first time in a month, I felt like I wasn't crazy, like my perspective mattered. The therapist recommended that I maintain firm boundaries with my family while I work through my feelings. She suggested writing letters to each family member, not to send, but as a way of expressing my thoughts and emotions in a safe space. I took her advice, and over the next week, I wrote letters to Derek, Carol, my parents, and Tracy. I poured out everything I had been feeling. After writing the letters, I made a decision. I wasn't going to keep chasing after my family's approval. I wasn't going to apologize for standing up for myself. And I wasn't going to let their twisted version of events become my reality. I decided to take a step back from all family interactions for a while. I needed time and space to heal, to rebuild my self-esteem, and to figure out what kind of relationship, if any, I wanted with my family in the future. It wasn't an easy decision. The thought of distancing myself from my family, even temporarily, was scary. But as I reflected on the events of the past few months, I realized that staying in close contact was doing more harm than good. Every interaction left me feeling drained, hurt, and questioning my own worth. So, I sent a brief message to my parents, Derek and Tracy. I told them that I needed some time away from family interactions to focus on my mental health. I said that I love them, but that the current situation was too painful and that I needed space to heal. The responses were mixed. Mom sent a long, guilt-tripping message about how I was breaking her heart. Dad simply replied, "Okay." Tracy sent a supportive message saying she understood and respected my decision. Derek and Carol didn't respond at all. It's been a week since I sent that message, and I won't lie, it's been tough. There are moments when I question my decision, when I'm tempted to call Mom or text Derek and try to smooth things over. But then I remember the hurtful words, the unfair accusations, the way they all turned against me, and I know I'm doing the right thing for myself. I'm focusing on self-care now. It's a journey, and I know it won't be easy. There will be more family events that I'll miss, more occasions where my absence will be noted and probably gossiped about. But for now, this is what I need to do to protect my mental health and rebuild my sense of self. Update 2. It's been 3 months since my last update. A lot has happened, and I'm still processing it all. First, the good news. The time and space I've taken for myself have been incredibly healing. My therapist was right. Setting boundaries and focusing on self-care has done wonders for my mental health. But of course, family matters are never simple, and there have been plenty of complications along the way. About a month after my last update, my sister Tracy reached out to me. She was in tears, saying she couldn't take the family drama anymore. Apparently, since I'd stepped back, she'd become the new target for Carol's demands and our parents' expectations. She told me that Carol was now pressuring her to be a bridesmaid for her friend's upcoming wedding, claiming it would be the ultimate act of sisterly love and a way to make up for my absence at their wedding. I was shocked. Tracy has always been clear about not wanting to be involved in big social events, especially after the stress of Derek and Carol's wedding. The fact that Carol would try to manipulate her into this, and that our family was supporting the idea, was mind-boggling. Tracy asked if she could stay with me for a while, just to get away from the pressure. I agreed, of course. Living together, we've had many conversations about our childhood, our family, and the events surrounding the wedding. Tracy admitted that she had always felt overshadowed by Derek and me, Derek for being the golden child, and me for being the rebel who stood up to our parents. She confessed that part of the reason she went along with Carol's demands was that she finally felt seen by the family. It's been eye-opening to hear Tracy's perspective. I realized that in my own hurt and anger, I hadn't fully considered how the family dynamics had affected her. We've cried together, laughed together, and started to heal our relationship. It's not perfect, but it's a start. Meanwhile, the rest of the family has not taken Tracy's defection well. Mom has been calling and texting nonstop, alternating between guilt-tripping and anger. Dad, who had been mostly silent before, has now started leaving voicemails demanding that we stop this nonsense and come home. Derek and Carol's response has been the most surprising. Instead of trying to make amends or understand our perspective, they've doubled down on their narrative of us being the villains. They've started a smear campaign of sorts, telling extended family and mutual friends that Tracy and I are mentally unstable and have abandoned the family. I was tempted to respond publicly, to tell my side of the story, but my therapist advised against it, saying it would only escalate the situation. One particularly difficult moment came when our aunt, Mom's sister, reached out to me. She said she had noticed something was wrong at the wedding and wanted to hear my side of the story. To my surprise, she listened without judgment and even shared some of her own experiences with our mother's controlling behavior. She told me that she was proud of me for standing up for myself, even though it cost me my relationship with the family. It was the first time anyone from the family had validated my feelings, and I broke down crying on the phone with her. This conversation with my aunt made me realize that there might be other family members who see through the facade, who understand that something isn't right. It gave me a glimmer of hope that maybe over time, more of the truth will come out. Update 3. It's been a year since the wedding that changed everything, and I'm sitting here reflecting on how much has changed, and how much I've changed. First, the big news: Tracy and I moved. We packed up our lives and relocated to a city on the other side of the country. It was a scary decision, but it's turned out to be one of the best choices we've ever made. We're building new lives, free from the weight of family expectations and small-town gossip. Tracy has started a new career in graphic design, something she's always been passionate about but never pursued because our parents didn't see it as a real job. She's thriving, and it's beautiful to see her confidence grow day by day. Now for the family situation. It's complicated. Derek and Carol had their baby 6 months ago. We found out through a mass email announcement. The message was cold and formal, like a business notification rather than a birth announcement. There was no acknowledgement of the family rift, no olive branch extended, just a statement of fact. They had a son. Here's his name and birth stats. I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt. Despite everything, a part of me had hoped that becoming parents might soften them, might make them realize the importance of family. But it seems they're still clinging to their narrative of us as the villains in their story. Mom and Dad's reaction to our move was predictable. There were tears, accusations of abandonment, threats to disinherit us. But underneath the drama, I sensed a hint of fear. I think they're finally realizing that their actions have consequences, that they can't control us anymore. We've maintained minimal contact with our parents. We send cards for major holidays and their birthdays, but we don't call or visit. It's a boundary we've set for our own mental health, and we're sticking to it. The extended family has been a mixed bag. Some have chosen to believe Derek and Carol's version of events and have cut us off. Some supported us. My aunt, the one who first reached out to me after the wedding, has become an unexpected source of support. She calls regularly to check in on us, and she's even visited us in our new city. Through her, we've been able to maintain connections with the parts of our family that matter to us. One surprising development came about 3 months ago. My cousin, Dad's sister's son, called me out of the blue. He was planning his own wedding and was feeling pressured by the family to invite Derek and Carol. He wanted to know the real story behind everything. I was cautious at first, but I decided to be honest with him. I told him everything. Carol's unreasonable demands, Derek's gaslighting, our parents' enabling behavior. To my surprise, he believed me. He said he'd always sensed something was off about Derek and Carol, but he couldn't put his finger on it. This conversation led to a mini-family rebellion of sorts. My cousin decided not to invite Derek and Carol to his wedding, which caused quite an uproar. But it also led to more family members reaching out to Tracy and me, wanting to hear our side of the story. It's bittersweet. On one hand, it feels vindicating to have more people understand the truth. On the other hand, it's reopened some old wounds and brought back painful memories. Through it all, therapy has been my lifeline. As for the future, Tracy and I are focusing on building our lives in another city. We've made wonderful friends in our new city, people who accept us as we are and support our journey. We're creating new traditions, celebrating holidays in ways that feel authentic to us. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe someday there will be a reconciliation with my family. Maybe Derek and Carol will realize the harm they've caused and make amends. Maybe my parents will acknowledge their part in the dysfunction and seek to change. But I'm no longer pinning my happiness on those maybes. I'm living my life on my terms, surrounded by people who love and support me for who I truly am. And that, I've realized, is the greatest gift I could have given myself. I'm looking forward to the future with hope and excitement. I don't know where this journey will take me next, but I know I'll face it with strength, self-respect, and the unwavering support of the family I've chosen. And really, what more could I ask for? Now on to the next story. Story 7. My sister-in-law requested a house key. I refused. Then it vanished. When I went to her apartment to get it, I encountered something shocking. I recently married my boyfriend of 6 years. We are both 27. While COVID has set our careers back a little, we are figuring it out together. My husband is not particularly close to his family. He never said why he isn't close to them, but based on what I've gathered, my husband and sister-in-law have some issues. These concerns compelled the in-laws to choose sides. My spouse hasn't been close to them since they sided with my sister-in-law. To be honest, it didn't disturb me too much. However, because I come from a large family, my spouse was frequently invited to our family gatherings because we had been together so long. Following these incidents, I noticed my spouse becoming silent, melancholy, and dejected. When we tried to talk about it, he never truly opened up. He just told me he wishes he had a better family. I recognized that he desired a closer or better relationship with his family. However, I did want to do anything without his approval. When I volunteered to contact his family on his behalf, he said he didn't want to do anything yet. He kept saying that there would be a better moment, but I had no idea when that would be. At one time, I was certain it would happen at our wedding. However, we married in a small ceremony attended by only our closest friends and family. He had not invited anyone from his side. However, I did meet his parents and my sister-in-law. While our wedding ceremony was going on, his parents and sister attempted to enter the site, which my husband had clearly cautioned them against. When they were successful in entering the premises, they made a big deal out of it, casting my husband as the bad guy for never responding to messages, picking up calls, or visiting my mother-in-law when she was battling cancer. My husband firmly instructed them to leave, indicating they were not welcome. My sister-in-law stood in the corner watching everything happen. When her eyes met mine, she offered me a little shrug as if to say, "What else are we supposed to do?" Once they were booted out, the wedding went off without a hitch. Following that, we were content to get married despite the odds. When we were on our way to our honeymoon, I received a friend request notification on my phone. Came from my sister-in-law. Seemed odd, but I didn't mind because we were family. I added her, then forgot about it. When we returned from our honeymoon, my husband and I were joyfully settling into our new home and married life. That's when my sister-in-law returned to my life. She messaged me, stating she knew I came from a large family and understood the value of family, which she claimed my husband did not. She expressed her gratitude for my assistance in reuniting the family. She also discussed in detail how my husband could be a bit juvenile, but promised me that if we worked together, we would be able to fix everything quickly. I was naive and believed her. We began talking more or less regularly. She even came over to our house once or twice while my husband was away because she wanted to meet me. Because I worked from home and had health difficulties, I couldn't entirely avoid her. During one of these visits, my sister-in-law requested a copy of the keys to our house. This was an odd request. When I questioned why she wanted them, she stated she was concerned about me because I was at home all day working. She stated that if something occurred to me while my husband was gone, having a key would allow her to enter and assist me. Although I understood her argument in the context of a medical emergency, something about her request seemed odd. Her statements made me feel uneasy, but I couldn't understand why. I gently declined and promised her that if anything happened, I'd call my husband. However, my sister-in-law did not appear pleased with my refusal. She quickly ended the conversation and departed. Although she was smiling, it didn't reach her eyes, which worried me even more. Following the incident, I stopped inviting her over. Every time she wanted to visit, I would make excuses to keep her away from the house. But one day, my justifications were ineffective, and she came over anyhow. I was on high alert the entire time she was present. When she eventually departed after lingering for tea, I felt relieved, but not for long. A few days later, I couldn't find my house keys in the customary location. Panic ensued instantly. I decided to go to my sister-in-law's apartment to get them. In one of our early talks, she provided her address and invited me to tea. I couldn't go since I was ill, but I knew the spot. As soon as my husband arrived home, I jumped into my car and drove to her place. I knocked on the door, and a man answered. I inquired if I might talk with my sister-in-law. The man respectfully informed me that nobody by her name lived there. I stated that she had given me this address and even showed him her picture. He glanced at it and stated that my sister-in-law did not live there and that I must have entered the wrong address. This seemed really suspicious. I casually messaged her and asked for her address again. She replied with the same address as before. By this point, I was absolutely panicked. I arrived home, trying to act normal, but I could tell I was nervous. My husband realized right away that something was awry. He has been trying to ask me what is wrong and what has happened for the past 2 days. But I have no idea how to explain the issue to him. I don't want him to be disappointed in me, but I realize I should inform him. I kept wondering if it was my fault for initiating the entire conversation with my sister-in-law. If I hadn't done it, I would not have lost the keys in this manner. But I really wanted to help. I know I should inform my husband about the entire scenario. I read what you stated, and I agree that I was terribly stupid to keep things from him. I should have told him about it anyhow. I understand why some of you are dubbing me the evil guy in this circumstance, and I also understand those who believe I am not fully to blame. Whatever happens, I'll do the right thing tonight and tell him everything. Do not fear. I will keep you updated regardless. I appreciate you being sincere and pointing out my mistakes. So, the conversation went better than anticipated. When my husband arrived home from work, I told him I had something to discuss with him. He appeared relieved when we were both comfortable. I told him everything. I described how his sister-in-law messaged me after our honeymoon, telling me that I could mend the family by remaining in touch with her and gradually reintroducing her and his parents into his life. I told him I didn't mean to hide anything or go against him, but I was afraid he'd stop me from doing anything since he was always refusing to tell me what was wrong with his family. I decided to try to heal the relationship myself. He listened to what I said without interrupting. When I was finished, my husband expressed his disappointment in me for keeping this from him for so long. He claimed I should have asked him what the problem was, and he would have told me everything. Now that we're married, he added that he didn't feel comfortable informing me before we got married, since he didn't know when his family would try to turn my heart against him. When I told him I couldn't follow, he gave me all the facts. My father-in-law is a very egotistical and abusive man. He has always been like this, caring just about himself. My sister-in-law acquired this feature from him. She is a narcissistic, yet charming lady who appears to be a very empathetic and sincere human being. However, in truth, she is selfish. My husband became aware of the hazardous atmosphere as soon as he matured enough to notice it. My mother-in-law and father-in-law both refused to divorce one another because they did not want to go through the inconvenience of court proceedings. When my sister-in-law's behavior got her into trouble at school, my mother-in-law exacerbated the situation by enabling her. Over time, my sister-in-law became more confrontational, harsh, and disrespectful. When she started college, she had a heated dispute with my mother-in-law and father-in-law. They were paying for her college tuition, but she was dissatisfied since they were also saving money for my husband's schooling, rather than giving it all to her as pocket money. At first, my father-in-law and mother-in-law refused to give my sister-in-law any more money because she already had plenty. But then my sister-in-law pointed out that my husband could just work his way through university, as my father-in-law had done, especially since he was a guy. She said that she was far too fragile to perform such work alone. Following that, my husband's education fund began to diminish. He was not aware of this. All he knew was that there was money set aside for him. When it came time for admissions, he learned the truth. When my sister-in-law encouraged him to just work his way through college, my husband chose to avoid touch with them. He began going no contact when he moved out at 19, but the decision had become permanent by the time he was 23. Hearing all of this made me realize how silly I was to invite my sister-in-law into our home. My husband also said that his mother had repeatedly contacted him over the years to ask for money, despite the fact that my sister-in-law appeared to be wealthy. Later, he discovered from their relative that my sister-in-law was doing drugs. While she did not appear to have a drug problem, she had struggled with substance misuse for some time. That's when I realized what had happened with the lost keys. My spouse quickly instructed me to call a locksmith and have the locks changed as soon as possible. He was concerned about when or if my sister-in-law will try to enter our home. I immediately disabled my sister-in-law's contact information and social media sites, preventing her from contacting me. We had the locks replaced, and as I said in my previous report, I felt a lot better after that. As my job responsibilities changed, I had to return to the office to work on Wednesdays and Fridays. When I got home one Friday, I noticed that my spouse had already arrived. It turns out that our neighbor, a nice old lady, was outdoors in her garden when she observed a suspicious young woman attempting to enter our home. The woman's description was exactly like my sister-in-law. The neighbor phoned the cops, and they apprehended her. My husband has decided not to prosecute charges, but he will apply for a restraining order to safeguard our safety. Looking back, I understand how naive I was in trusting others so easily. While my objective was to aid my husband, I now realize that my actions were presumptuous. If you care so much about your husband's well-being, why don't you tell him everything, rather than keeping things from him? I'm sure it would upset him more to find that you were keeping things from him than to learn that you were talking to his sister. Ita in the wrong, but only for being arrogant. You are purposefully ignoring your husband's demands in order to accomplish your own, and you are keeping everything from him. He does not wish to communicate with his family. Why can't you respect that? Now consider a different situation. In late October, my wife Karen, 78 years old, and I, 71 years old, leave for Florida and spend the summer in Connecticut. Our daughter Cara and her husband Sean live in Massachusetts. Cara is pregnant with their first child, who is due in March. In September, my stepson gave Cara and Sean new kitchen floors. I offered to help with the installation. Their home is nearly a century old. While I am not a contractor or carpenter, I am proficient in home repairs. I was simply intended to lay the floors, but during the demolition, I persuaded them to remove several cabinets so that the flooring could be installed properly. I agreed to help with prep work on weekends and returned from Florida in November to build and install the new cabinets. They agreed. Cara and Sean, as new homeowners, are not particularly handy, but they were eager to get started. However, as we started, we discovered that the walls were covered with decomposing horsehair plaster, which was an unpleasant surprise. By the conclusion of the weekend, there was no stove hookup, only 10% of the floors had been put, and the kitchen was disorganized. I told them to plaster the walls throughout the week, and I'd return the next weekend. Cara and Sean contacted in a panic on Tuesday, claiming the plaster was a catastrophe. Cara expressed worried about the burden of her pregnancy. I told them to wait. Cara, on the other hand, told me she felt misled, that the project had spiraled out of control, and that she wanted me to accept responsibility not monetarily but for my role in the issues. I informed them that they had taken the decision to demo the cabinets and that it was not my home. They eventually compensated me for my services and hired a contractor. They stated I couldn't commit to a project of this scale, especially given I work full-time and assist my stepson with his house flip. They questioned whether I would return to assist after departing for Florida, and Cara was uneasy working during her pregnancy. I disagreed with their evaluation, yet was devastated when they fired me. Since then, things have gotten odd. I haven't contacted them to inquire about the kitchen or the baby, despite receiving occasional updates. Karen has asked about the baby several times. Cara recently contacted us, stating that the situation has been dreadful. They had to obtain licenses from the town, and they have not had a stove or sink in months. Cara claims I don't care about her health or our grandchild since I haven't checked in and haven't taken charge of the situation. I chuckled and told her I would have finished it by now. She texted Karen and myself, instructing us not to speak to her and expressing her displeasure. Karen then said no to Cara's baby shower in January and canceled our visit without alerting them. Sean contacted us, urging us to reconsider, stating that they will only become first-time parents once. He added that Cara is 6.5 months pregnant and did not mean what she said. He even offered to pay for our visit tickets. Karen and I, on the other hand, have maintained our solid attitude. We advise them to notify us well in advance and that we may visit in March, either before or after the baby is delivered. Cara is devastated, but Karen and I were just trying to satisfy her requests. Now I wonder whether I am the a-hole? On so many ways. First, as you mentioned, you are neither a contractor or carpenter but are skilled at house maintenance. You urged them to demolish their kitchen but barely completed 10% of the flooring before leaving. Cara has every right to be upset, and her feelings are valid. You made a mess of their place and then backed down, essentially saying, "Oh well, not my issue. I personally would not want anything to do with you, but they have invited you to their baby shower. Go and apologize." Now consider a different situation. I have 3 children. My husband and I worked hard to raise them and help them become successful adults, and they have. I am proud of all 3. They were wonderful children who have grown into decent individuals, if I do say so myself. When my oldest daughter married a widower with a 2-year-old child, my husband and I established an education fund for that child, as we had for all of our biological grandchildren. We understand a little bit about investing in compound interest, and by starting early we can invest a small sum every month. By the time they graduate from high school, we can present them with enough money to get them started in life. My oldest grandchild recently graduated from high school. After accounting for scholarships and other expenses, we were able to inform them that they would graduate debt-free. We do not give them money directly. Rather, we pay for tuition, fees, and other expenditures. We acquired this lesson from our youngest child, our only son. We gave him the money directly, just as we had done with his 2 elder sisters. He got scholarships as well, but he spent the money we gave him and eventually decided to become a tradesperson instead. He is doing well now and has a great business. My son was married before, but it did not work out. He has 2 children from that marriage. Last year, he married a lovely woman who had a 15-year-old kid. She had her son quite early, which caused a schism in her family, and none of them attended the wedding. My son approached us about donating to his stepson's education. After some deliberation, my husband and I decided that we could afford to donate $5,000 to help, but that was it. My son was quite disappointed. He understands that all of our other grandchildren have enough money in their accounts to cover at least 2.5 years of in-state tuition and costs. While my son makes a fair living, he also enjoys spending it on toys and holidays. I don't believe he or my daughter-in-law had saved anything for his stepson's school, which is why we contributed $5,000. That money came from my personal fund to replace my car. My son and his wife are planning ahead for the stepson's graduation in June, but they continue to complain that I treat him differently than my other grandchildren. I understand we're treating him differently, but we didn't have nearly 2 decades to save for him. When I clarified this issue, I may not have worded it correctly. My son's lack of finances to pay for his stepson's schooling is due to his spending habits before marriage. I hope this is apparent now. I spoke with my husband and children about it. My son wants me to transfer money from all of the accounts we've set up for his biological children and open a new one for his stepson. We answered by offering to split the 2 accounts we already had for his biological children into 3, including the $5,000. We also agreed to continue contributing to these accounts until they are depleted. My youngster appears dissatisfied with that option. However, we did not have the same 15-year head start on saving for this grandson as we did for the previous ones. He can be disappointed that his stepson will not have the same head start, but he cannot be angry with us for not being able to offer more right now. Finally, it is up to him to provide for his family. Now on to the next story. Story 8. My parents canceled my 18th birthday to please my entitled sister, so I moved out with Grandpa, who then cut them off financially for good. Hello. I recently turned 18 a few days ago, but sadly, my bratty elder sister insisted on my party being canceled at the last minute. Hence, my parents canceled it. I was very glad she wasn't even meant to be here for the celebration, but it's just my luck that strong Midwest storms caused all of the planes to be canceled on the day she was scheduled to depart, 3 days before my birthday. She was meant to go to NYC with a group of pals, but for now, they have had to postpone the trip. She has been rather offended over it. Hence, my parents have been walking on eggshells around her, since they truly want to avoid aggravating her. She is the golden child of our family. Hence, they wouldn't dare, really. So much so that she insisted my birthday be canceled early on, as in her words, "If she doesn't get to have fun, neither will I." Naturally, my parents sent the message to every single individual who had been invited without second thought. Much later in the evening, while I was eagerly waiting for all the visitors to arrive, but none were showing up, I discovered when I asked my parents at last why none had shown up even by 7 p.m. They informed me they had called off the celebration without even asking me. They claimed my sister was somewhat disturbed and felt it would be inappropriate to throw a party while she was in this state. At that point, I lost all control and began yelling at my folks. It seemed simply to be unfair. My sister had always received different treatment from my parents, who expected me to sacrifice all my life and meet her every demand more than my own, and I always had as well. This was, however, going much too far. My sister was complaining about a trip that was cancelled for legitimate reasons outside of anyone's control. Hence, my parents had promised to plan my 18th birthday party, invited all of my friends and family so we could have a large birthday celebration, and now they had cancelled it without even notifying me. To exacerbate things, my parents had subtly informed every visitor that I had suddenly gotten ill, so I called off the party, declaring I had a migraine and that using my phone was the last thing I needed. They asked that no one text me about it. Nobody texted me. Hence, I had no idea what was going on until the very last minute. I started fighting with my parents right away when they informed me what had transpired, extremely offended as it wasn't my place to back down. I was yelling at them. Even then, their main worries were my being too noisy since they worried my sister would wake up from her nap. I kept yelling till my sister arrived downstairs, not giving a damn about that. Starting to defend our parents, she said they had done nothing illegal. She said that, as it would be cruel, she was the one who objected to everyone celebrating or partying while she was so distraught. She even said that I was the most entitled and spoiled person if I couldn't see that. Her utter arrogance following what she had done infuriated me to the point of me mindlessly starting to curse her. Things became physical as I grabbed her hair and tried to shake her. Our parents had to split us apart, and in the turmoil we missed the doorbell ringing. My parents opened the door to discover my grandfather waiting there. After we at last stopped battling, everyone in the family, including my parents, regards my paternal grandfather as a truly formidable force. Not great news for them was having him at the door. He began questioning why there was so much yelling and cursing as soon as he walked inside. Probably since I had been the loudest, he turned to me for responses. Usually, since it seemed petty, I wouldn't share with people the way my parents treated me, but I told my grandpa everything since this time I had nothing to lose. I told him I was unhappy with my parents and sister, and that hiding the truth would not help them treat me any better. Hence, I saw no use in doing so anymore. It was time to stand up, and I did. I also told him that I had dealt with my sister every day for the past 18 years. Hence, the bias toward her was not a one-time occurrence. But this episode was the last straw. I could not stand it anymore. My grandfather's expression was clearly shocked. As soon as I spoke, he erupted at my father within seconds and started chastising him. It was then that I learned a lot of hitherto unknown facts. For the previous few years, my grandpa revealed, he had been giving money to my parents every month since they had been trying to keep their business open and maintain the family. Basically, it was my grandfather who had been helping us all along, even covering the cost of the party my parents were ready to claim credit for. My grandfather chastised my parents for disappointing him with such treatment of me. From my conduct, he added, it was obvious that their devotion for my sister traumatized me. While my sister, being as stupid as ever, tried to argue with him, my parents silently let him talk. She said that her primary reason for requesting a cancellation of the party was her devastation at having her trip to New York, which she had been looking forward to for months, canceled indefinitely. She said it was merciless of me to throw a celebration while she was in pain, but my grandfather did not have time for her lies. She was the perfect example of entitlement, he reminded her, canceling my 18th birthday celebration only to suit her emotions. He told her the world did not revolve around her, and I believe it must have news value for her. My sister's argument with my grandfather infuriated him even more, and finally, he informed my parents he would no longer be helping them. They were on their own now. Then he advised me to get ready and accompany him should I wish to move away, as obviously my parents only gave my sister top priority. The only thing my parents were offended about, even when my grandfather said this, was losing his financial backing. I was about to accept his offer, but they didn't seem to care that he volunteered to let me live with him. This merely confirmed what my grandfather said. They gave no damn about me. I thus wasted not a moment. While my parents tried to haggle and fight with my grandpa to keep his support, I walked upstairs. I hurriedly packed my belongings, then headed downstairs with my grandfather, who barely turned around one final time. He apologized to me for everything I had gone through. As we were driving to his house, he remarked he ought to have done this long ago, though I'm not sure exactly what that implies. I'm just rather happy to be living with him right now. My parents are the only ones dissatisfied with this arrangement. Clearly, they have been assiduously attempting to reach me. Although I have not blocked them yet, I have not been answering their calls or messages either. Still, I have been reading their texts. My parents continue to text me, apologize, and claim they lacked thoughtfulness since my sister was more delicate and her emotions were more fragile. They acknowledged they always put her first. They now regret it, as they never understood they were ignoring me and doing this. They worked very hard to give the impression that they were ignoring me simply because they felt I was strong enough to manage it. To be honest, though, my sister is practically 5 years older than I am, and if anything, she ought to have been the one capable of sharing with our parents. I bought not a single word from what my parents said. I understood they were just acting this way since Grandpa wanted me to return and enable him to keep supporting them. From them, all I wanted was one sincere apology, yet it never came. It really began to irritate me, so this morning I told my father to stop texting me. I replied I didn't need their false apologies. I knew they were merely doing this to maintain Grandpa's support. I had finished working with them when they canceled my birthday celebration without even asking me. They had told me just where their priorities lay. That was the straw shattering the camel's back. Today I was never returning. My dad responded instead of apologizing, saying he and my mother had mistreated me, but he was ready to set things right and do anything necessary. I seized the chance to explain to them that I would only agree to come back and discuss helping them if and only if my sister would no longer be living with us when I returned. They made a mistake by stating they were willing to do anything. She is 23 and has been working for the past 2 years. By now, she should have accumulated enough money to move out. I thus don't even consider myself to be being so unfair, but my parents see me to be callous and silly now. Am I the a-hole for informing my parents that should my sister move out, I will only be back in with them? That kind of thing. My parents had always given her first attention. These little items added up, even if they were trivial. Sadly, I never considered it sufficient enough to discuss with my relatives. Even if I had, I doubt it would have been justification for anybody wishing to have me taken away or offered to move out from. I simply remained quiet about it since else it would have infuriated my parents even more. Regarding my grandfather, I mentioned he is a force to be reckoned with since practically every member of the family loves and respects him. He had won numerous challenging cases and was among the greatest attorneys back in his day, not to mention quite rich. He leads a very disciplined life and is quite morally pure. Clearly then, everyone in the family looks up to him. I could have told him how my parents were treating me if I had wanted to, but up until last year, he was rather busy seeing my grandmother, who was nearing death. He was busy, and I wanted not to disturb him with my little grievances while he was already handling so much. He was grieving when my grandma went away, so I didn't believe it was worth mentioning. I am quite appreciative now that he is willing to assist me. Our connection has always been good. Hence, it is not shocking that he has volunteered to let me live with him until I start college. He has even informed me he will cover all of my college costs until I'm working. Update 1. Hello. Hence, I have decided to keep to the condition I proposed for my parents. Obviously, even if they kick my sister out, I have no intention of returning to live with them. I merely want to find out whether they really do it. That will reveal whether they really want me back or whether they believe my sister is more valuable than the financial support of my grandfather. I haven't told him anything about this, but to be fair, I recently learned of other things he had been hiding from me. I therefore believe it to be fair enough. I'm talking about the fact that my grandpa knew my parents didn't truly want me all along, but he had never taken anything about it. Actually, even if my sister lacked any traits that would justify her partial behavior, I never even knew exactly why my parents favored her. My grandfather recently told me that originally my parents had just intended for one child. 5 years following my sister's birth, though, my mother became pregnant with me. Although they intended to end the pregnancy, my dad made a mistake by alerting the parents of my mother about it. My mother's grandparents insisted that it would be inappropriate to turn away that gift should my parents be blessed with another child. They thus persuaded my parents to maintain the pregnancy. Sadly, while my mother was 8 months pregnant, my maternal grandparents were in a horrible vehicle accident. Both died from their wounds following several weeks of struggling for their lives. My mom was clearly heartbroken. During her pregnancy, she experienced a rather mental break whereby she began accusing me of bringing ill luck into her life. She spent a few weeks institutionalized, and when she returned, she was quite improved. Still, my parents secretly felt bad about letting the pregnancy get this far. After I was born, they had every intention of having me adopted, but this time my paternal grandparents intervened. They forbade my parents from putting me up for adoption and told them they were crazy. Though they were reluctant, my parents raised me. When I challenged my grandfather about the comment he made when he took me back home, he told me all of this. Now I see what he meant when he said he ought to have done this long ago. I agree he ought absolutely to have. In any case, I know I will never go back to my parents since I now know the truth about the reason they treated me differently. My present treatment of them is absolutely justified. For years, they punished me for something not under my control. At least I'm better than them since I'm punishing them for truly their fault. Though I still find my grandpa frustrating for not being honest sooner. I know these things are difficult to discuss, especially to a young child. Right now, he is the only person I can rely on. Thus, I try not to get too enraged with him, but I felt bad about it when I spotted my sister waiting outside today following school. I so requested one of my male buddies to accompany me home. Being a football player, he is rather on the larger side, and I knew that if my sister did anything, he would be there to assist. We have been friends for a really long time, and I totally trust him. He knows all, even specifics about my family. He agreed to stroll me back home. It was really starting to creep me out as my sister trailed silently halfway home. I turned around to challenge her on what she was trying to do. She said she wouldn't want to chat in front of a stranger, but I told her I hardly wanted to chat with her at all. She then began telling me that my behavior has been the reason our parents have been really anxious and unhappy. She said yesterday that unless she was forced out of the house, our parents had at last warned her that I wouldn't come back home or even speak to my grandfather about helping them again. She thought I was being somewhat unjust. Thus, she came here to challenge me about it. I told her, if I can't be happy, neither can you, thinking it ludicrous of her to believe I would dignify this with a conversation. She used exactly the same reasoning to have my party called off. Thus, I reasoned it should also apply to her. She started yelling at me, calling me a vile human being. When I turned around to head home, I merely kept walking with my friend and turned her off. I never bothered to reply or look around. I suppose turning her off was what truly infuriated her, as shortly afterward she attacked me, and I was on the ground. I could feel her weight on my back as well as my own from my rucksack. Fortunately, my friend physically had my back since I sensed her being hauled off me in seconds. My companion was supporting her with one arm, hardly breaking a sweat. As I at last got back on my feet and dusted myself, knowing my sister's aggressive nature, I suppose I was right to have him walk me home. Her even belief she could attack me and get away with it infuriated me. I thus approached her, gave her a strong slap, and warned her that I would call the cops should she attempt anything humorous once more. I knew our beloved parents would not value any more drama with all the turmoil she had already caused. She still had the arrogance to try and fight with me, but following that slap, my friend and I turned away, and she stopped following me. I told Grandpa all about it when I returned home. He was about to contact the police, but I told him it was not worth it. She was just a loser, and I knew she had learned her lesson. Besides, she was definitely already in a dangerous posture with our parents. When I eventually told my grandpa about the state I had created for my parents, I expected he would be offended, but instead, he laughed alongside me. He felt it was clever and believed my parents deserved to be let run wild. That was that then. Though I'm a little hurt from being thrown to the ground, I feel good knowing I finally gave my sister some sense. She really deserved it, and it was a long time coming. I now simply hope my sister and parents leave me alone after learning this. Update 2. Hey, I moved out practically a month ago. I will only be staying with my grandpa for a few more months as September marks my beginning of college officially. School has ended right now. I graduated from high school a few days ago. The football player friend I described in my last report was my prom date indeed. Several of you folks called it, and I wanted to share this joyful little nugget before delving into what transpired with my sister and parents. 2 days following my confrontation with my sister, I got a note from my parents. They claimed to have figured out their desired line of action. As I had always been envious and spiteful, they chose to let my sister stay with them since in their eyes, I was obviously not the kind of person they wanted around her. My mother's older brother had chosen to be a partner and investor in the company. Hence, they no longer needed financial support and no longer wanted me around. They acknowledged the only reason they wanted me back was because they needed money help from my grandfather. Although I had known their actual motivations from the start, this disclosure had little effect on me. I'm really sure they believed this would damage my emotions. I neglected even responding to the message. They wrote me another message a few hours later stating they were going to block me immediately because I was a disgusting human being, just like my sister had claimed. I guess this reality got under their skin. They tagged me as violent and unappreciative in addition to calling me terrible and merciless. Obviously violent since I had smacked my sister the other day, and it was not surprising that they disregarded the truth that she had initially attacked and pushed me to the ground. Better still, my sister must not have told them. Hence, they most likely did not know. They also branded me unappreciative since despite all they had done for me, I still had the audacity to act as though they were negligent parents. They discussed how they had raised me, spent money on food, sent me to school, and clothed me. When parents bring up things like that while in a difficult situation, I truly find it perplexing. It doesn't make them unique. I consider it to be rather the minimum they could do for their children, but I suppose my parents believe the basic minimum is more than enough. Hence, I should treat them like my saviors for doing it. In any case, I wanted to reply but opted against it since it would waste time. I therefore blocked them first, and I was done before they could block me. My grandpa and I are living really nicely, and thus far, most of the colleges I applied to have welcomed me. As promised, my grandpa will pay all of my costs. I am still waiting to hear from some of the better ones. We are still getting used to living together, and I do find myself feeling enraged at him sometimes for not removing me from my parents earlier. I am aware, though, that he had personal limitations and regrets not being able to support me when most needed. These days, we are working on it together. I never have to cope with my parents on my own ever more. Hopefully, they won't contact me either going forward. Update 3. Hi, I last updated 1 full year ago. I much appreciate the wonderful remarks and helpful DMs. Right now, I am doing fantastic. My entire family, from what I know, has cut off my sister and dad. Although my mom's side of the family is still in contact with them, nobody from my dad's side speaks to them anymore because of my grandpa. Since I never discussed it, most people had no idea how I was being handled. However, as my grandfather began to tell others he was not in contact with my parents, they discovered the reason we experienced that fallout, and my parents were ultimately shunned. It's karma, I suppose. I don't think anyone else could have caused this state of affairs except themselves. Although I don't know what my sister has been up to. I heard from a few people that she moved out and is now living alone last week. To be honest, that news motivated me to update all of you here. I am still going strong, as is my boyfriend. We get together on the weekends since I head home every weekend. My college is really near. I truly feel like a brand new person. Even though I have made many acquaintances here, now closer than ever, my grandfather and I have also worked on our relationship. I doubt anything can ever change. He is my favorite person on earth, though in the past he has made blunders. Nevertheless, nobody else has. We have moved on from everything, and I have forgiven him. Indeed, right now I am really content. I appreciate you folks. Now on to the next story. Story 9. We've been together for 4 years and have a child, but he refuses to marry. What are my options? It all started 5 years ago when I first met Michael at a mutual friend's party. He was charming, witty, and had this incredible ability to make everyone around him laugh. I was instantly drawn to his charisma, and before the night was over, we found ourselves engrossed in deep conversation. We exchanged numbers, and that was the beginning of our love story. Michael and I began dating, and it didn't take long for us to realize we were meant to be together. Our relationship grew stronger with each passing day, and after a year we decided to move in together. Living together was a big step, but it felt right. We were in sync, and our love continued to blossom. A year into our cohabitation, I discovered I was pregnant. The news was both surprising and joyous. We were thrilled to become parents and welcomed our beautiful son, Alex, into the world. Being parents brought us even closer, and I felt more connected to Michael than ever before. As our relationship progressed, I naturally began to think about marriage. After all, we had been together for several years, shared a home, and now had a child together. It seemed like the next logical step. So, I brought up the topic of marriage, excited to see what Michael had to say. The first time I mentioned it, Michael brushed it off with a casual remark about wanting to have a wedding that was unique and different. He said he wanted to save up enough money for a ring that would truly signify our bond. His words seemed reasonable at the time, so I didn't press the issue further. Months went by, and every time I brought up marriage, Michael had a new excuse. "Why don't you propose to me?" he said once, catching me off guard. When I playfully agreed, he laughed it off, saying he wouldn't say yes. It became a running joke between us, but deep down it bothered me. Recently, I decided it was time for a serious discussion. I needed to understand why Michael was so hesitant to take this step. We sat down one evening after putting Alex to bed, and I asked him directly why he didn't want to marry me. After a long pause, he finally came clean. He told me he didn't want to marry me now because he felt I still had growing to do. According to him, I was a bit too childish, and he wasn't ready to commit to marriage under those circumstances. His words hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt a mix of confusion, frustration, and hurt. I had grown so much since we first met, and I was doing my best to be a good partner and mother. Yet here he was telling me I wasn't enough. I knew I had my flaws, but who didn't? I also felt Michael was a bit childish at times, but that didn't change my desire to marry him. We had been together for 4 years, lived together for almost as long, and had a 3-year-old child. What else was he looking for? He said I was an emotional thinker and tended to seek revenge when wronged. While I admitted I had grown a lot from those tendencies, it didn't seem like a valid reason to delay marriage, especially after all we had been through together. So here we are, stuck in this limbo. I love Michael, and I want to spend the rest of my life with him. He says he feels the same way, yet there is no ring on my finger. The question remains, how much longer will I have to wait for him to be ready, and more importantly, will he ever be? The first serious conversation about marriage came on a quiet Sunday evening. We had just put Alex to bed, and the house was filled with the soft hum of the dishwasher. I decided it was time to bring up the topic again, but this time I needed real answers. "Michael, can we talk?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked up from his book, sensing the gravity in my tone. "Sure. What's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I want to know why you don't want to get married. We've been together for 4 years, we live together, and we have a child. I need to understand what's holding you back." Michael sighed and put his book down. "I've told you before, it's not that I don't want to marry you. I just think we need more time." I could feel my frustration bubbling up. "More time for what? We've had plenty of time. I need you to be honest with me. What's the real reason?" He hesitated, his eyes avoiding mine. "I don't think you're ready," he finally said, his voice low. "Not ready? What does that even mean?" My confusion quickly turned into hurt. "We've been through so much together, and now you're saying I'm not ready?" Michael took a deep breath. "You're too emotional, Emily. You let your feelings control you and you get revenge when you feel wronged. It's not something I want to deal with for the rest of my life." His words cut deep. "I've grown so much since we first met. I've been working on myself, trying to be a better partner and mother. How can you say I haven't changed?" Michael shook his head. "You have changed, but not enough. Just last week, when we had that argument about the bills, you went out and spent money on things we didn't need just to spite me. I remembered the incident vividly. We had argued about our finances, and in my anger, I had bought some unnecessary items online. It was a moment of weakness, but I didn't think it defined me. I was upset, Michael. Everyone makes mistakes. But it's not just that, he continued. You always make a big deal out of small issues. Like when my sister didn't invite us to her birthday party. You were furious and refused to talk to her for weeks. You can't keep giving your energy to every little thing. His words felt like a barrage, each one hitting harder than the last. I care about family and friends, Michael. I give my energy to the people I love. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? But you take it too far, he said, his tone firm. You make everything more dramatic than it needs to be. It's exhausting. I felt tears welling up in my eyes. So you're saying I'm too much for you? No, that's not what I mean, he said, softening. I love you, Emily. I really do. But marriage is a big step, and I need to be sure that we're both ready for it. I wiped away a tear, feeling a mix of frustration and sorrow. I've been trying so hard, Michael. I don't know what more I can do to prove that I'm ready. He reached out and took my hand. I see how hard you're trying, but I need you to understand that it's not just about proving something to me. It's about us being truly ready for the commitment of marriage. I don't want us to rush into it and end up regretting it later. I looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of reassurance. So, what do we do now? We keep working on ourselves and our relationship, he said. We take things one step at a time and see where it leads us. I'm not saying no to marriage forever. I just want us to be in the best place possible when we take that step. His words were meant to be comforting, but they left me feeling unsettled. I wanted to believe that we could work through our issues, but a part of me couldn't shake the feeling of being unjustly judged. I had grown so much, yet it never seemed to be enough. As we sat there in silence, holding hands, I realized that this was just the beginning of a much longer journey, one filled with challenges, growth, and hopefully, eventually, the commitment we both desired. That night, after our conversation, I lay awake in bed, Michael's words echoing in my mind. Too emotional, childish, seeking revenge. Each accusation felt like a dagger, piercing through my confidence and leaving me vulnerable. I couldn't help but replay our past arguments, searching for moments that justified his claims. I remembered the argument about the bills. I had been so angry that Michael had spent money on something unnecessary while we were trying to save. In my frustration, I went online and bought a few things I didn't need, just to prove a point. At the time, it felt like a small act of rebellion, but now it seemed like a glaring example of the behavior he criticized. There was also the incident with his sister's birthday party. When we weren't invited, I felt deeply hurt. Family was important to me, and I took the exclusion personally. My reaction had been intense. I refused to speak to her for weeks. Michael had tried to explain that it wasn't a deliberate snub, but I couldn't see past my own feelings of rejection. As I reflected on these moments, I began to see a pattern. Michael was right about some things. I did let my emotions drive my actions more often than I should have. My tendency to react strongly, to seek some form of justice when I felt wronged, was something I needed to work on. But was this enough to delay marriage indefinitely? Wasn't everyone a work in progress? I thought about the changes I'd made over the years. When Michael and I first started dating, I was more impulsive, less thoughtful about the consequences of my actions. I had learned to communicate better, to pause and think before reacting. I had taken steps to manage my emotions, like practicing mindfulness and seeking advice from friends when I felt overwhelmed. Still, Michael's words had planted a seed of self-doubt. Was I really as immature as he made me out to be? Or was he using these flaws as an excuse to avoid commitment? I needed perspective, so I decided to talk to my best friend, Sarah. Over coffee the next day, I poured out my heart to her. Michael thinks I'm too emotional and childish to get married, I said, my voice tinged with frustration. He says I need to grow more before he's ready. Sarah listened patiently, her brow furrowed in concern. Emily, you've grown a lot since I've known you. We all have our moments, but that doesn't define who you are. I sighed, stirring my coffee absent-mindedly. But what if he's right? What if I'm not ready? She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Everyone has things they need to work on. The important thing is that you're aware and you're trying to improve. Relationships are about growing together, not waiting for one person to be perfect. Her words offered some comfort, but I still felt a lingering uncertainty. Later, I decided to talk to my mother, hoping for a more seasoned perspective. My mother had always been my rock, providing wisdom and guidance through the toughest times. When I told her about my conversation with Michael, she took a moment to think before responding. Emily, marriage is a big step, and it's good that Michael is thinking about it seriously. But it sounds like he's focusing on your flaws rather than seeing how you complement each other, she said gently. You need to consider if he's also willing to grow and change. Marriage is about supporting each other through that journey. I nodded, absorbing her words. Do you think I'm ready for marriage? Only you can answer that, she replied. But I can tell you this, no one is ever truly ready in the way they think they need to be. It's about being willing to face challenges together and grow from them. My mother's perspective helped me see things more clearly. It wasn't just about my readiness, it was about our readiness as a couple. Was Michael willing to work on his own issues and support me through mine? Or was he using my flaws as a shield to protect himself from commitment? As the days passed, I continued to reflect on our relationship. I realized that while I had areas to improve, so did Michael. His reluctance to marry might stem from his own fears and insecurities, not just my perceived immaturity. I needed to have an honest conversation with him about his own growth and our future together. With renewed determination, I decided to approach Michael again. This time, I would not only address his concerns about me but also express my expectations for him. Marriage was a partnership, and if we were to move forward, we both needed to be committed to growing together. I didn't have all the answers, but I knew one thing for sure. I loved Michael and wanted to build a future with him. And that meant facing our challenges head-on, with honesty and openness. It was time to see if he felt the same way. A few weeks after our initial conversation, I gathered my courage for another serious talk with Michael. I had spent a lot of time reflecting on his words and my actions, but I still felt there were unresolved issues between us. I needed clarity, not just for myself, but for the future of our relationship. The breaking point came one evening after a particularly stressful day at work. I had been juggling multiple deadlines and dealing with a demanding client, and by the time I got home, I was exhausted. Michael was in the kitchen making dinner, and Alex was playing with his toys in the living room. The sight of our cozy home usually brought me comfort, but tonight it only reminded me of the unresolved tension between us. As we sat down to eat, I couldn't hold back any longer. Michael, we need to talk, I said, my voice strained. He looked up, sensing the gravity of my tone. About what? About us. About this endless limbo we're in, I replied, my frustration boiling over. Michael sighed, setting down his fork. Emily, we've talked about this so many times. What more is there to say? I felt a surge of anger. There's plenty to say. We've been together for 4 years, Michael. We have a child together, and yet you still can't commit to marrying me. I'm tired of waiting. His eyes flashed with irritation. It's not that simple, and you know it. I've explained my reasons. But your reasons keep changing, I snapped. First it was about money and the perfect ring, then it was about my emotional growth, now it's about how I misallocate my energy. When will it ever be enough? Michael stood up, pacing the kitchen. I just want us to be ready, Emily. I don't want to rush into something we might regret. I stood up too, my hands trembling with emotion. This isn't just about being ready, it's about you being afraid to commit. You're hiding behind these excuses because you're scared. He stopped pacing and faced me, his expression hardening. That's not fair. I'm being honest about my concerns. It's not just about me, it's about both of us. I could feel tears welling up, but I refused to back down. I've been working so hard to address your concerns. I've grown so much, Michael, but you keep moving the goalposts. It's like nothing I do is ever good enough for you. Michael's face softened, but his eyes remained resolute. I see how hard you're trying, Emily. I do. But I need to feel secure too. I need to know that we're both in a place where we can handle the challenges of marriage. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. And what if we never get there? What if you never feel secure enough? Are we just going to keep living like this, pretending everything's fine while we avoid the real issues? He didn't answer immediately, and the silence between us grew heavy. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know. That was it. That was the moment I realized I couldn't keep living in this uncertainty. Michael, I can't do this anymore, I said, my voice trembling. I love you, but I can't keep waiting for you to decide if I'm worth marrying. I need to know where we stand. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and fear. What are you saying? I'm saying that we need to make a decision. Either we work through this and commit to each other fully, or we go our separate ways, I said, my heart breaking with each word. Michael stared at me, his face pale. Emily, don't do this. We have a child together. We can figure this out. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. I can't keep living in this limbo, Michael. It's not fair to me and it's not fair to Alex. We need to make a choice. The next few days were a blur of tension and sadness. Michael and I barely spoke, the weight of our unresolved argument hanging over us. Alex sensed the change, becoming more clingy and anxious. It broke my heart to see him affected by our conflict. One evening, as I was putting Alex to bed, he looked up at me with wide, innocent eyes. Mommy, are you and Daddy mad at each other? I felt a lump in my throat, struggling to find the right words. No, sweetheart. Mommy and Daddy are just trying to figure some things out. But we both love you very much. His small arms wrapped around my neck, and I held him close, wishing I could shield him from the turmoil in our lives. That night, Michael and I sat down for one final conversation. We need to make a decision, Michael, for us and for Alex, I said, my voice firm but gentle. He nodded, looking weary. You're right. We can't keep doing this. At that moment, we both knew that something had to change. It was time to either face our fears and commit to each other fully, or to let go and find our own paths. Whatever the outcome, it would be a turning point in our lives, a moment that would define our future and the future of our family. That final conversation was one of the hardest moments of my life. We sat on the couch, facing each other, the weight of our shared history pressing down on us. Michael took a deep breath, breaking the heavy silence. Emily, I've been thinking a lot about what you said. He began, his voice trembling. I know I've been unfair to you, constantly changing my reasons for not wanting to get married. It's not just about you needing to grow. I realize now that I've been projecting my own fears and insecurities onto you. I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. I understand, Michael. We both have our issues, and it's not fair for either of us to shoulder all the blame. But we need to decide what's best for us and for Alex. He looked at me, his eyes filled with tears. I don't want to lose you, Emily. I love you and our family. But I also see that we've reached a point where we need to make a real commitment to change, or we need to accept that maybe we're not meant to be. I wiped away my own tears, my heart aching. I love you too, Michael, and I want to believe that we can work through this. But we need to be honest with ourselves. Are we truly willing to put in the effort to grow together? We sat in silence for a long time, each of us lost in our thoughts. Finally, Michael spoke. I think we both know that this isn't working anymore. We're hurting each other more than helping. Maybe it's time we consider separating, for our sake and Alex's. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. I think you're right, I said softly. We've been trying so hard, but sometimes love isn't enough. We need to give ourselves the chance to heal and grow separately. In the days that followed, we began the difficult process of untangling our lives. We sat down with Alex and explained, as gently as we could, that Mommy and Daddy would be living in different homes, but that we both loved him very much. His innocent eyes filled with confusion and tears, and it broke my heart, but I knew this was the right decision for all of us. Michael found a small apartment nearby, wanting to stay close to Alex. We agreed on shared custody, with Alex spending half the week with each of us. The transition was hard on all of us, but we made it work, keeping Alex's well-being at the forefront of our decisions. As I settled into my new routine, I focused on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the productivity and the sense of accomplishment it brought. I also reconnected with friends I had neglected, finding strength and support in their presence. I took up yoga and meditation, practices that helped me manage my emotions and find inner peace. Michael, too, was on his own journey of self-discovery. He started seeing a therapist to work through his fears and insecurities. He began taking night classes to further his education and career, something he had always talked about but never pursued. We remained amicable, communicating openly about Alex's needs and occasionally catching up over coffee to discuss how we were coping with the changes. One evening, a few months after our separation, I sat down with Alex as he was drawing pictures of our family. He looked up at me and asked, "Mommy, are you and Daddy happier now?" I paused, considering his question. "Yes, sweetheart, we are. It's been hard, but sometimes people need to follow different paths to be the best they can be. Daddy and I both want to be the best parents we can for you." He nodded, seemingly satisfied with my answer, and returned to his drawing. Watching him, I realized how resilient children are and how important it is to model strength and positivity for him. As time passed, I found myself growing in ways I hadn't anticipated. I became more confident, more self-assured. I discovered passions and interests I had long forgotten, buried under the weight of a strained relationship. I began to see a future that was bright and full of possibilities, a future where I could be truly happy and fulfilled. Michael and I continued to co-parent effectively, creating a stable and loving environment for Alex. We attended his school events together, celebrated his milestones, and ensured he felt the love and support of both his parents. Our relationship, though no longer romantic, became one of mutual respect and collaboration. One day, while browsing through some old photos, I stumbled upon a picture of Michael and me from the early days of our relationship. We looked so happy, so full of hope. A pang of nostalgia hit me, but it was accompanied by a sense of peace. We had shared wonderful moments and had grown together, but we had also grown apart. Our decision to separate was not a failure, but a necessary step towards personal growth and happiness. As I looked towards the future, I felt hopeful. I was open to new experiences, new relationships, and new opportunities. I knew that life would continue to present challenges, but I was stronger and more resilient now. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, secure in the knowledge that I was on the right path for myself and for Alex. My choice is correct. Do you agree with my choice? Please comment below to let me know. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Family never invited me to events and always forgot about me. This Christmas they planned a cabin trip without me, and my nieces accidentally told me. So I, 29M, am an oops baby. Something that my family has constantly reminded me of since I was little because it's funny. My brother, 44, sister, 42, sister, 39, were all planned by our parents. I was the result of a drunk and fun night on New Year's Eve, according to my dad. I've never been close to my siblings due to the large age gap. My parents, while never mean, never went out of their way to show me the same love that my siblings get. At least that is how it's always felt. For instance, when I was younger, I was in choir. I used to love to sing, but no one in the family ever came to see me sing. I was told we are busy, or we have other plans. So I gave up singing. But I remember them going to my other siblings' dance things. So I gave up on doing anything other than working on my computer and playing with my friends. I stuck to just getting good with computers, and in doing so, ended up in a good job where I've been working for almost 10 years now. Started at the bottom of IT, and now I've worked my way up to being a manager for about 15 people. However, being in IT means I have to occasionally miss out on family events as well as some holidays because where I work, it's 24/7 split into 12-hour shifts. Due to this, over the years, I've been accidentally forgotten to be invited because we figured you were working. without actually asking me. This has been a recurring issue with my family, forgetting to ask me to join them or making excuses as to why I wasn't invited. However, one thing I could always rely on was being able to show up on Christmas Eve. That's when we celebrate Christmas and still feel like I belonged, even if it was later in the evening. Most of the love I felt came from my nieces, who always think of me as the cool uncle and are always happy to see me. I happened to stop over at my folks yesterday, and while there, I saw my nieces. Folks tend to watch them on the weekends, that's a whole different story. But my nieces started asking if I was excited for Christmas as we get to hang out in a cabin this year. I looked confused and asked my mom what they were talking about, and she looked obviously embarrassed and said, "Everyone made plans back in June to celebrate in a rental cabin in Vermont for Christmas." "Lol. I kid you not." She looked at me and said, "We all figured you had to work again and couldn't get the time off, so everyone figured you wouldn't mind missing one Christmas." Had they said something, I could have taken the time off. To say I was and I'm heartbroken is an understatement. Like, I get I'm an oops baby, and not really ever thought of much, if ever, but to just be left alone for the Christmas on purpose? I mean, how does a family do that to someone? I just turned around, hugged my nieces goodbye, and left. Didn't even say goodbye to my mom. I pride myself on being a strong individual, especially on how my family has always treated me, but not going to lie, I actually cried on the way home. Never in my life have I felt so rejected, especially by people who are supposed to love me. I couldn't even ask her when they planned on telling me or if they planned on telling me. What would happen if I showed up after work and no one was there? I just left. I probably should have, but I was hurting too much to really care at the moment. Now here's my dilemma. I have a new girlfriend, Zoe, 27F, and by new, I mean we've only been going out and seeing each other since just after Thanksgiving. I sent her a text when I got home telling her what happened as I had to talk to someone. She kind of knows about my family. Being in such a new relationship, I didn't want to unload all my baggage on her. But she does know that me and my family don't have a standard type relationship. Anyway, she has invited me to go with her to celebrate Christmas with her family. I haven't given her an answer yet. In previous relationships, we were together months before the invite to Christmas ever came up. However, this is the first relationship where it's only been a few weeks. So, asking people of Reddit for their advice, would going with Zoe to her family's be a good idea? Being that this is new, is there a potential downside? Would it be better to be gracious and thank her for the invite but decline, or accept the invite and go? By the way, I do have to work Christmas Eve again this year, but not Christmas Day, so that's a plus, I guess. Lol. I've rambled enough. Sorry this thing got a little too long. Update 1. December 29th, 2024. First, thanks for those that commented on my first post. Wasn't really sure if I should go or not, but it was the best decision I ever made. When I told my GF that I would love to go with her, she was really happy. I did what others suggested and bought a really nice bottle of wine for her family and a few gifts for my GF. I expected a bit of awkwardness when we arrived, but none of that happened. When we arrived and I met her family, I was treated just like I belonged there. I had a great time. We had some really great food and played some games, and overall it was a great experience and much different than any Christmas I ever had with my family. Speaking of which, they/mom called me while I was at my GF's family. I don't think they were happy about it by the tone of her voice, lol. When they called, we were in the middle of playing Pictionary and everyone was having a good time. She asked where I was, and I told her I wished her a Merry Christmas and hung up the phone and then turned it off. I wasn't going to let her/them ruin a good time. When it was time to go, everyone thanked me for coming and said they hoped I had a good time. I don't think I could wipe the smile off my face even if I wanted to. It was such a nice and loving group of people. I know this relationship is still super new, but the amount of love I received from my GF and family really makes me hope that this works out. I've never felt in my whole life what I felt on Christmas. As someone posted on my first post, it felt like a Hallmark movie of sorts. I know it's just all the new feelings, but if anything, I've learned I deserve more than what little my family gives me. Thanks again, everyone, for talking me into going. Best decision ever. Update 2. January 7th, 2025. Still getting lots of requests for an update, so here to give a final update of the fallout. Again, want to thank everyone for their kind words and taking the time to comment. Felt good to know so many kind people are on Reddit. Well, I finally had a talk with my mom and dad yesterday after work. I told them the amount of disrespect and dismissiveness I've received from them and the rest of the family will no longer be acceptable. That for years, I've put up with the mental and emotional abuse from them thinking that is what family was. However, after spending time with my girlfriend's family, I realized how toxic they are. Of course, my mom tried to gaslight me into saying I was overreacting and making things sound worse than they actually were. So I pointed out time after time how they disregarded me, made me feel unwanted and forgotten, how I was always treated as an afterthought because I didn't fit into their perfect family picture. Christmas being a prime example. I told them, at least for the foreseeable future, that I won't be coming to any family-related events and I'll call them, don't call me. That I deserved better, that I deserved more than what they've been giving me. I pointed out how she got upset that I was having a good time with someone else's family proves my point. Maybe in time we can try to rebuild some kind of relationship, but for now I'm walking away and putting myself first for once. My dad nodded his head understanding, I think for the first time, how they've treated me. Mom started crying and I had to walk away, and it was clearly a guilt trip. Also texted my brother and sisters as to keep mom from manipulating what was said. The older two think I'm being petty and overreacting too, but I expected as much. My youngest sister, niece's mom, seems to understand and said I was still welcome to see them if I wanted outside of that. Not much else. I've been invited to Easter dinner by my GF and her family. So looking forward to that. I know it's a ways off, but nice to know that I apparently made a good impression that they've invited me back. Thanks again for all the comments, it really helped me. Now on to the next story. Story 11. My boyfriend's female boss used to be his roommate, and everyone said they hooked up. Now she's trying to transfer him across the country against his will. Hey everyone. My boyfriend, Lee, and I have been together for 2 years. We've been living together for 1. Before we moved in together, he was living with a friend from work, Kim. In the very beginning of our relationship, 1 to 2 months in, I was approached by a lot of his coworkers telling me that Lee and Kim used to hook up a lot. That of course made me feel uncomfortable, and instead of being an adult and talking about it with him, I got drunk one night and had a breakdown. Not my finest moment, and I've apologized to both him and Kim about my behavior. Lee assured me nothing ever happened between them and that it was just workplace gossip. I completely believe him, and even if he did sleep with her, it's in the past and he's completely committed to me. After we moved in together, his contact with Kim dwindled to just the workplace and occasional get-together with mutual friends. Unfortunately, Kim was not so forgiving about my little immature moment. I didn't have the breakdown in public or around Kim, but Lee did tell her about it for some reason. I wasn't too happy about that, but I made it a point to try and take Kim out to lunch and drinks and apologize. I thought all was well, but apparently, it's not over. Over the last 2 years, Kim has been nothing but awful to me. If we're all out to dinner, she ignores me, rolls her eyes if I start speaking, and cuts in front of me as I'm speaking to people, like I'm not even there. Whatever, I get it. I tried to be nice, but I'm not her biggest fan either. What has really set me off is the fact that Kim is above Lee in management and is in charge of expansion. She has approached Lee multiple times about going to open a new branch of the company in a city that is a 3-hour flight from where we live now. Opening a new branch for this company requires the person to live in that new city for at least 2 years, and she has put Lee's name in the running even though he has told her straight up he does not want to go. I'm livid, and surprisingly, he is too. But he doesn't see it as a slight towards me, just that she'd like someone experienced to open the new branch, and he's the most experienced in the company to do it. So it could be that, but I don't know, I feel there's another motive as well. After all of this, Lee still wants me to try and be friends with her. I have told him that a friendship between us just isn't in the cards. I've tried everything to get her to like me. Thrown her surprise birthday parties, moved her into a new apartment while she went back to her home state for an emergency. I even bought her a tour at her favorite distillery. All to no avail. I'm done trying. I've told him that I in no way want him to stop his friendship with her. But I would rather he not talk about our relationship with her, and that I'd rather not be in a room with her or at dinner with her unless there isn't a sizable crowd where I can pretend she's not there. I can deal with her at birthday/holiday events, but besides that, I really don't want to be around her. He's obviously hurt that we can't seem to get along, and he keeps trying to push me to be her friend. Apparently, he still thinks that she needs more time to get to know me and see how sorry I was about a mistake I made 2 years ago that I've tried so hard to correct. So my question is, how do I get Lee to understand that him and I will never be friends and that I really just don't want to be around her if I can manage it? Comment where OP has replied. Comment: how bad was the blowout? Were you yelling, throwing things, hitting? That may have a lot to do with why she is being so cold to you. Pete: not bad. I got mad and screamed at him, but she wasn't home. I didn't throw anything or hit anyone, just a lot of drunk and crying and yelling. Update 1. So it wasn't really popular and I didn't really respond in the thread, but I did read all the responses. I appreciate the time people took to reply and give their advice, as well as the people who DM'd me and really helped me figure out the situation. So, to start off, I talked to Lee to really get down to whether or not he did sleep with Kim. He swore again that it never happened and he would have no reason to hide it if it did. I asked him if maybe Kim had a thing for him that he didn't know about, and he thought about it and figured it could be true. I told him again why I didn't want to be her friend and how I didn't like the way she treated me. He wasn't aware of how bad it was, so I asked him to make a conscious effort to try and be more aware when we're hanging out together. He's very aloof about a lot of things. Makes me glad I made the first move in the relationship. So a week goes by, and a couple of his buddies from work want to go out to dinner. We agree, and when we show up, Kim is there. She hugs Lee but then ignores me. I thought Lee missed it until he looked at me and gave me a raised eyebrow. Dinner goes on, and Kim is doing her usual thing of ignoring me, rolling her eyes when I talk, or just rudely interrupting me. When she went to the bathroom, Lee turned to me and said, "I definitely see it, and I'm so sorry." So that was really nice to hear. As dinner was winding down, one of Lee's coworkers gets up to make a toast. He goes on and on about Lee being such a hard worker and how they're going to miss him when he moves to the new branch. I was shocked, so I just said, "What?" without realizing I said it aloud. Lee was just as shocked and told them that he hadn't taken the job and he didn't want the job. That's when Kim said that he was one of the top 3 picked to go down. Lee was pissed. He got up to go get another drink, and I went with him. When he found out that Kim put his name in the running, he went to the higher-ups and told them it was a mistake and that he was not interested, which means Kim must have found out and talked the bosses into putting his name back in the running. We ended up leaving early and going home. I told him I'd support him if he wanted to go, but he is very much against going. He now sees why I didn't want to be friends with her and why my assumptions about her were completely true. He went back to work on Monday and asked to be moved to a new department that's not under Kim. He went to HR about Kim overstepping her boundaries, and he's even thinking about finding a new job where he doesn't have to interact with her. I'm so glad he finally saw what I saw, and he's completely done with Kim. I'm excited to see how losing her will help improve our relationship in the future. And he promises to be more aware of how his friends treat me and to respect my wishes and not force a friendship on me if I don't want it. Comments where OP has replied. Comment: now that your husband has taken back all control from her, you need to take steps and protect yourself in case she lashes out. Make sure you lock down your social media and block her everywhere so she can't see what you're up to. Check locks on your doors and consider installing security cameras in case she goes full psycho since she knows where you live. If she is his manager, she has access to a lot of your husband's personal info, including DOB and possibly SSN. Keep tabs on all your accounts and make sure she doesn't misuse that info to put him at risk of identity theft. It's good that your husband talked to HR, so hopefully she can't do much damage at work. He still needs to be vigilant though and avoid being one-on-one with her in case she tries to accuse him of something. I know I sound paranoid, but with her level of crazy, it's better to be safe than sorry. OP definitely didn't think about any possibility that she could go postal, but you're right, we should be aware and be ready for anything just in case. I might ask that we get security cameras that we can take with us because we plan on moving to a new place in a couple of months. I'll definitely let him know to keep an eye on his personal stuff and keep checking in with HR if he notices any difference in her behavior at work. Comment: wait, they're ex-roommates and she's his boss? Were they roommates first or coworkers first? OP: they started at the company at the same time and became friends as coworkers. Then they moved in together and became roommates. After a couple of months, Kim went out for a promotion and got it. That's how she became his boss. Comment. Y'all, those hookup rumors, did Kim start them? OP. I'm assuming they did, or other people. It's hard for some people to see two attractive, single people of opposite genders living together and not think they're hooking up. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.